Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z and Corey Clubb, the podcast you're looking for. This is, yes.
For an entire generation, people have experienced Star Wars the only way it's been possible, on the TV screen. But if you've only seen it this way, you haven't seen it at all.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
We've been waiting for you.
The force is strong here, even stronger than the coffee.
Welcome to Coffee with Kenobi. Here are your hosts, Dan Z and Corey Clubb.
Hello, this is Corey Clubb, and welcome to show number 30 of Coffee with Kenobi, a Star Wars podcast that analyzes our favorite saga in a whole new way. With me is my good friend and co-host, Dan Z.
Hello, everybody. We hope everyone had a great holiday season and is ready for the year of Star Wars 2015. We have so much to look forward to as Star Wars fans, with new episodes of Rebels, new books and collectibles, Celebration Anaheim, and of course, The Force Awakens. It's going to be awesome, and we can't wait to hear what you all have to say. With more shows, book chats, Rebels reactions, and much more, we hope Coffee with Kenobi will be the podcast you're looking for in 2015.
In today's show, Mark Bellomo, author of The Ultimate Guide to Vintage Star Wars Action Figures 1977 to 1985, join us to talk about our topic for show number 30, Vintage Kenner Star Wars Action Figures. We're also joined by Lillian Skye of Star Wars Underworld, as she talks about some exciting analysis she discovered in her classroom.
We'll also discuss 3D versions of the prequels and other Celebration news, Disneyland discounts, new Star Wars headphones, and much more. We will also have the next offering of Your Espresso Shot with a bearded trio featuring Rob Wainfer.
And now, let's see what's brewing in the Star Wars universe this week.
Oh, wait. This is interesting.
You found something.
I'm about to let everyone in on the secret.
Our first news story has to do with Celebration, obviously a big event coming out in 2015. Dan and I are excited, and they're starting to announce all kinds of events going on. One of the biggest events so far that we've heard announced is a 3D version of Revenge the Sith. Episode 3 of Star Wars is going to be debuting during Celebration. Throw on your 3D glasses and you can check it out. They also had a bunch of different kind of collectibles you can get. Recently, they announced some poster alternatives, some variants of the poster that we talked about in an earlier show, some badges and things, some pins and things. This is the kind of stuff that I kind of look at, like, as far as the collectibles go. You know, I'm not such a huge collectible guy, these kind of sorts of things. But what about you, Dan, as far as the collectibles and the pins and stuff?
You can probably guess. I flipped out. I've always liked this poster, as I said in a previous show. It's my wallpaper at school. Before we go on, I do want to point out, I've been thinking about this for a long time. I just never brought it up on a show. But when I look at this poster, the poster for Anaheim's Star Wars Celebration, I see the teaser trailer all over this thing.
Wow.
Look at it. I mean, you've got this menace in black. You've got a stormtrooper. You've got a hero. You've got two heroes, a male and a female, poised for action, looking into the distance. And you've got the X-wing, and you've got TIE fighters. And there's a desert planet. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it could be an incredible coincidence, but I don't think so. I feel like there's a lot more to The Force Awakens here. And I know I'm so close to speculation here that the ice is cracking on my my own mantra. Yeah. But I just something to think about. And then you look at the variant.
Yeah.
First of all, on StarWars.com, we'll have a link in our show notes, but they show what almost was. Mm-hmm. And those are pretty breathtaking, too.
Yeah,
especially the Red Vader. But I love the Rebels version of this poster. I think it's as cool. It's really, really neat.
Well, here the other thing too, they had the badges that are kind of the same design, that skewed picture of some of the characters, and those are excited to see that, you know, hanging off everybody. So it's obviously a theme that's been going on through the entire weekend. And you know, we talked about this before. We talked about the original poster that was debuted. And I mean, it was okay to me. It looked good, but maybe it wasn't something that toot my horn about. But seeing it again amongst these alternative versions It's the other ones that got the Vader and his lightsabers. It's almost symmetrical. I mean, it is symmetrical the way it's laid out, and those are more pleasing to my eye. The red one really jumps out at me and really looks very, very Sith. And of course the secondary version where it's got Leia on the opposite side and Vader. It's very Empire to me. The one with the Rebels is incredible. It looks really great, but yet it really maybe mirrors the original version. With all the heroes and obviously Vader and the Inquisitor swapping places. So it shows me so much was going in the depth of thought here, and I mean, they describe some of the artist describes some of the concepts and the thoughts he was going through as he was designing this, and from a design standpoint, it's come into its own light, and I've really come to appreciate it more, seeing these concepts and kind of the final result that's come to be, and this is really an incredible design here that he's come out with.
It is. And Dan Brooks,
Dan Brooks.
He's awesome. I get to work with him a lot with the blog, and which is fun. You mentioned the badges.
Yeah.
They show 5. There are going to be 22 different ones. They're going to be collectibles too. The staff one was Solo School. There's no press one yet, which of course, selfishly, I want to see what that's like. But the badges are fun collectibles in their own right. I love this stuff. I couldn't wait to see the design of the badges. I'm incredibly, incredibly excited to see the merchandise.
Yeah.
So, man, I better start. I mean, I've already been saving money for a long time, but dude, these are good.
Well, these badges, real quick, they look like iPhone cases. So, could we see that as possibly merchandise? So, probably. Yeah, again, this is a cool theme to go with. I could see it on the back of my iPhone, definitely.
You mentioned the 3D
yes.
Revenge of the Sith. You and I talked about this a lot via text, and basically I'll sum up as this. I've seen these movies a lot. Mm-hmm. Everybody's seen these movies a lot. I've never seen episode 2 or 3 in 3D. We saw The Phantom Menace in 3D in theaters. I wasn't in Star Wars Celebration Europe to see it. I haven't seen the schedule. I don't know what's going on. I'm sure there'll be lots of opportunities to interact with people that are just going to be beyond anything we've ever experienced before. But I really think just being in the theater and experiencing Star Wars. I mean, being in a theater with Star Wars is what movies were made for. Mm-hmm. The cinema experiences in Star Wars, that's what it's all about. But imagine seeing that with a room full of people who are just as ravenous about it as us. I think that's going to be like almost going to see the Beatles in concert.
That's a big comparison. Yeah. Again, the schedule isn't out. We don't know our official schedule. I'd like to say we would definitely be there and enjoying it through all our friends and just taking in possibly some relaxing time just to enjoy the film. I mean, that's what we're all there for, to enjoy the films and celebrate the films. So why wouldn't we just sit there and view them? Why not? And throw on some 3D glasses and pop some popcorn and have some good times.
Our second news story is pretty cool because I know people have been thinking about it. How could you not? But they've announced that they're going to have discounted Disneyland tickets for people who attend Celebration. And I haven't actually checked the prices yet. I guess since we're doing the podcast and we're actually covering it in our news, I should have done that. I didn't, but I know it's discounted. That's what I needed to see. So I'm hoping there'll be some sort of a Disneyland event around when we're there. It might be hard to know when to leave the convention and when it's going to be a good thing to do. But I want to go to Disneyland real bad. I mean, you're going to be a rock's throw away. So I'm going to do it, man. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a block away. I think you showed me a little quick map of the run they're having certainly very soon. And if you get a discount on it, I mean, and the timing's right. And again, like you said, we're there to celebrate and enjoy Star Wars. Why not go ride some rides and Star Tours and just have a blast? I mean, just have some fun. It'd be cool to have, wear your badges in, and that's the way you get your discount. That'd be kind of cool. Our next news story has to do with some social media outpouring of love from Leland Chee, obviously the Holocron Keeper himself. He tweeted out, "From someone who has been working with the Lucas companies for nearly 18 years, trust me when I say 2015 is going to be, in all caps, phenomenal." And right now, I mean, we're looking at News
Yeah, it's
UK.
an older
It's an older post, but there's 270 favorites. I'm sure there's a lot more by now. 162 retweets.
I'll look it up while you're waxing poetic.
Leland Chi, obviously, he's on the story group, and he's in their camp and doing all kinds of great stuff behind the scenes. And to get this tweet, just to get his version of things maybe we haven't seen or things to come this year, this will be the year for Star Wars. I mean, this will go down in history. I mean, I keep thinking about it, and it is this generation's 1977 for sure, if not more. So because it's so Star Wars is so ingrained into our culture.
162 retweets, 270 favorites.
Okay, awesome.
You know what? That's actually not true. There's 163 because I just retweeted it.
Way to go!
Yeah, this is it's so cool, man. Wouldn't it be fun to have him on the show? Hopefully, we'll get a chance to meet him at Celebration.
Yes.
Wow, this is great. I mean, like he said, he's been doing this for a long time, and there's so much to be excited about. Oh man. But can't wait.
Here's the other thing, Dan, too, is, once in a while I'll tweet about something because the moment hits you. You're doing something, you're like, oh, you know what? This is incredible. I need to tweet about this, or I need to push something out there because I'm just so excited. And this is exactly what he did. He's, like I said, he's working behind the scenes, and he's a fan as well. I mean, he's out there doing his job, but, he's also a fan at heart, and just to put him out there, you can see his love just pour out. So I'm very excited.
Hi, this is Lillian Skye of the Star Wars Underworld, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z and Corey Clubb. This is the podcast you're looking for.
Joining us on Coffee with Kenobi is Lillian Skye of the Star Wars Underworld. Lillian is a great Star Wars voice in the community through her blogs and social media, and she's a prolific writer with some fascinating things to discuss with us concerning a recent paper she did. Welcome, Lillian.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you very much. This all came about because, of course, we follow you on Twitter, as all Star Wars fans do, and love hearing what you have to say. And then I noticed that you had mentioned something about a really, really cool paper that you were doing for a class, and I thought, this would be great to talk about on our show. So go ahead and tell us, first off, how you got involved in the Star Wars community in the first place.
Well, when I was 2 years old, my dad introduced me to the Star Wars films. He showed me bits and pieces of the original saga, nothing too graphic like lightsaber fights or battles. He showed me some of the clips with the droids. So kind of as I grew up with the films and watched the Clone Wars series and now the Rebels series. But I really got hooked on Star Wars when I was younger and joined the community when I met some of the Star Wars actors at Star Wars Weekends in 2010. I was 14, and just from then on, I just knew I wanted to be more involved. I didn't really have social media at the time, but I just kind of connected with Ashley Eckstein and met Daniel Logan and some of the other original actors from the films and the Clone Wars. And then from there, just created my blog called Fangirls in the Force. I think I made that when I was like 15. And then just from there, I've just been going to conventions and meeting up with people and connecting with other fangirls like myself who are really involved in the community and just want to engage other Star Wars fans. And from there, I've just been active on social media and love talking to other fans.
It really is a cool thing to do, especially with all the exciting things going on. And you mentioned some pretty big names, and I have found, and I'm sure you have too, that the people in Star Wars that work in Star Wars and just are passionate about it, there are really good people who really enjoy conversing with others.
Yeah, I've just found that Star Wars, to me, I know other fandoms, they have conventions and they meet up with other people and they're active on social media. But something that I found with Star Wars is that everyone is really connected, like whether it's the actors going out of their way to meet their fans or to go out to lunch with them, or, you know, like Vanessa Marshall, I got to meet her in New York and we grabbed dinner with a group of like Star Wars fans, or like Ashley Eckstein meeting up with some of her fangirls at Star Wars Weekends, or, you know, Dave Filoni going out to premieres and meeting with his fans. Like, I feel like the actors are really fans themselves and they're willing to engage people. And I think that's what makes it more of a family instead of just a fandom.
Oh, I agree.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I bet that dinner was a lot of fun.
It was so much fun.
I remember seeing that, all those kinds of fun things about that. So that's great. So go ahead and tell us, if you would, about this awesome paper that you just completed.
Yeah, I'm a freshman and I go to school in the Washington, D.C. area. And one of my papers, it was, or one of my classes, it was called Communication in Society. And going into it, I didn't really know what we were going to talk about. Like our professor, she seemed really interesting. Like she wanted to watch a music video at the start of every class. So when she told us we could write our final paper for a symposium and present it to the class, that it could be on anything, I knew it had to be on Star Wars. So my paper's on Star Wars and society, and it's about how Star Wars and the entire saga has had an impact on our society because it's something that transcends age, race, gender, and it really tackles important topics such as race and gender roles, government, and society's views on religion.
Wow.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, we kind of talked about a little bit off the air before this, and kind of going in depth a little bit more. Some of the things you tackled as far as like you talked about race and gender and religion. To go into some of the details that you explored through the Star Wars universe.
So when I was trying to choose my thesis, my teacher, she kind of kept hounding me about it. She really wanted me to narrow it down, and I kind of couldn't do that because Star Wars is so vast. So I couldn't just pick one thing. She was like, well, why don't you hone in maybe on gender roles, or why don't you hone in on Ashley Eckstein and her universe and how she created this clothing line and talk to her. But I really wanted to cover kind of a more broad topic because there was so much going on at the time with, Ferguson and, Emma Watson, speaking at the UN for like feminism. Like there was so much going on at the time, and I really couldn't just hone in on one thing. So that's how I decided that I wanted to kind of make it about Star Wars and our whole society and not just on one specific issue.
And rightly so. I mean, you've hit a lot of big topics out there that are ripe in social media nowadays as far as, you talk about fandom and what people have opinions about and things. And I'm certainly, congratulations to you for doing that and putting yourself out there and taking to that level. And I'm curious to kind of know, when you mentioned like you wanted to do a paper on Star Wars in general, what was your teacher's reaction?
I think like from day one, she kind of knew that I was a little bit nerdy. She asked us to go around the room and say our name and our favorite movies. And I said Star Wars and 13 going on 30. So she knew I kind of had a little bit of girly and geek going on. So she just kind of looked at me, and someone was doing their paper on like Beyonce's role in society. And so she's like, well, we'll have like two different versions of the scale going on here. So I think she liked it. She seemed kind of nerdy herself.
That's cool.
But in the total most respectful way possible.
Absolutely.
I use nerd very respectfully.
Hey, we do a Star Wars podcast. We very much embrace our inner nerd and our outer nerd as well. So I'm also interested in when you talked about, you mentioned some very important words, like you mentioned feminism and you mentioned race, very popular topics, not only in Star Wars, but just culturally. They're always in the limelight, so to speak, because they're very important. What did you learn about Star Wars through this experience, particularly when it came to race and feminism?
Okay, well, when I was doing research for this, I looked more into Princess Leia's role at the time and how she was a female lead in the original Star Wars film, and how that was kind of something that was rare at the time for, there to be a female lead in a film like this where she wasn't overly sexualized, at least, in the original Star Wars film. And then I kind of did research more into The Force Awakens and how one of the new lead was going to be female. And at the time, we didn't know the names. So, my topic, under, women is just female lead. It's not Rey, because we didn't know who she was going to be. So my professor was like, well, who is this character and who are you talking about? And I just told her that I didn't really know, much about her character. I just knew that she was going to be a female lead. And the same about John Boyega's character. I knew that he was going to be the first, Black male lead in a Star Wars film. And I just kind of went more into that. And I really learned that Star Wars is something that does transcend race and gender. And Star Wars has never been afraid to kind of cover and tackle difficult issues like this. Like, they're not afraid to throw, something new at you, whether it's, a new senator is a strong female who's not afraid to stand up to other people, or where it's Princess Leia going up against Darth Vader. Like, or, whether it's, making John Boyega a stormtrooper. We don't know whether he's actually a stormtrooper or, he's just like a spy or something. Like, Star Wars isn't afraid to cover issues like this and push forward. And like, I wouldn't be surprised if they introduce, other leads in the future that, maybe it is another difficult topic. Like maybe they'll have like, I don't know, like a gay lead or something else. Like we don't know, but Star Wars isn't afraid to tackle something like this, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Even though those are such huge issues, I think, like you talked about, as far as writing a paper and at that level too, and to tackle, I mean, even, all the movies, but yet also Episode 7 and The Force Awakens and digging into those talking points and those hot topics and really, put it in this paper. So again, I applaud you for doing that and doing the research and stuff. It's interesting that you put it out there. My question, I guess, is how does it change that you've seen? You said you kind of started with the older movies and like up until The Force Awakens. What are some of the significant details you pulled out of that as far as like the range as far as the films themselves?
Do you mean like going from, as she said earlier, no real black lead and into a potential black female or male lead character, and then that kind of transition? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe I'm wording it wrong. Just as a fan, I guess.
Well, let's put it this way. I think I know what Corey's trying to say.
Thank you.
No problem. To me, you mentioned Leia, and of course, Princess Leia is one of the most popular characters of all time, female or male, and rightfully so. And she's got a commanding presence. You mentioned in A New Hope that she's not overly sexualized, but she's a striking female character, and she has that about her, but that's not all that she is, which has always been something that has made her so appealing to everyone. But the thing that has always been a source of contention for many fans, I think, is at the end of A New Hope during the Death Star trench run, I feel like, and tell me what you think about this, Lillian, I feel like if this scene was made in 2015, that Princess Leia would be one of the people in the X-Wing going down the trench as well.
That's, yes.
Yeah, I've never actually thought about that before. It's really interesting.
Yeah, what do you think about that notion?
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like if A New Hope was The Force Awakens, that Leia would be right there beside, Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon, or like you said, in an X-Wing trying to take down the Death Star. Whereas, I don't know if you flipped it and Rey and John Boyega's character were in A New Hope, that Boyega might be the one on the Death Star and Rey would be the one sitting back,
right,
and kind of calling the shots in a way. Yeah, I've never thought about that before.
Well, I mean, that's the beauty of powerful literature, is it will take gender roles and flip them on their ear and show different sides of people, and just it subverts the culture in a very positive way. And I like what you mentioned about The Force Awakens, because I think there's a lot of potential there for do that. We brought up in our last show that when there was an uproar about John Boyega by some people,
it made me so mad.
Yes, it made everyone upset, and it's very disappointing. Even though in 2015 you see this kind of thing, but we know that it exists. And one of the things that Corey and I talked about was, how do we not know that maybe every stormtrooper in A New Hope was black?
Exactly.
And it doesn't even matter. I mean, it's part of the beauty of the story and the storytelling. And just, you can't see that trailer without getting chills when you see the intensity of John Boyega's face. And this is a character, I have to know what happens with him. He's got a commanding presence in like 7 seconds.
Yeah, like I want to know, at the time I wanted to know his name. Now we know his name's Finn. But at the time I wanted to know his name. I want to know where he came from, where he was going, what he was running from, his story.
Right.
You just want to know his story.
Okay, Lillian, you mentioned earlier the traumatic, very intense things that happened in Ferguson, and you tied that into Star Wars and culture and society in your paper. Tell me kind of the crux of what you did with that.
When I was writing my paper, I think it was the day before everything came out about Eric Garner, and of course everything was still going on with Ferguson. And when I heard that John Boyega was receiving a lot of criticism, it just made me really, I felt anger that people were in the midst of everything going on, that people were still criticizing him. And like, amidst the Ferguson protest over the death of, African-American graduate Michael Brown, like the racist comments posted on Twitter, like prompted John Boyega to respond to his critics. I'm sure you saw that on Instagram. Like, yes. Boyega wrote, like, to whom it may concern, get used to it, with a little smiley face.
It was outstanding.
I love that. And like how, he just has the nerve to stand up for himself, amidst all that's going on. Like, it just makes me so proud to be a Star Wars fan, amidst, all that's going on. Just that Star Wars is so progressive, it transcends race, and just that people on Twitter, someone posted, like, I researched Twitter, like went through all like the hate quotes, and it made me so upset. Someone posted like, a black stormtrooper thanks Obama. Like, that's like slandering, not only this new stormtrooper, but the president of our country,
right?
In one tweet.
And let's be honest, with social media, we have unprecedented power through freedom of speech, and to still be in that camp and to tweet out something like that's offensive and racist is really unfortunate, and quite frankly, it's ignorant.
And just something that I think Star Wars has done, like, since all humans in Star Wars are considered, aliens because they don't come from planet Earth, like, I think the whole Star Wars franchise really eliminates the concept of human racism. Because, whether they're dark skinned or light skinned, like, all human, quote unquote people in Star Wars, they're equals. Like, for some, like the weight that, John Boyega carries in the new Star Wars film installment, it can bring hope for more of a sense of unification to the series and ultimately, like, society. Like, moving forward as the first black lead in a film, like, this is doing something new. Like, Star Wars is breaking its chain of having white males as leads in the saga. And, he may be the first black man seen in Stormtrooper armor, but the promise of diversity in The Force Awakens is what really sparks the interest in both skeptics and fans alike. So I think whether you're a Star Wars fan or not, you're going to go see this film.
Okay, that was insanely awesome.
That was awesome. Yeah, that was
paper,
great.
Or was that just off the cuff?
Oh, that was not off the cusp. I was totally, like, recalling my paper.
No, you should have just said it. Was right off the top of my head, yeah.
Very prescient. Very good.
Very good. So, Lillian, talk to us a little about her campus and your writing for Star Wars Underworld.
So I've been writing for the Star Wars Underworld since my senior year of high school. I had talked to some of the guys for a little while, and they're awesome. So something that I've been doing for them is, like, whenever I have a chance, I'll cover news, like Star Wars news. I actually covered the Force Awakens. I think it was the name for the episode 7, The Force Awakens. I was in class. I was in my writing for communication class, sitting there with my laptop open, typing notes. And I think it was like Google. It was like breaking news, name for Star Wars film. So I'm sitting in class, and I open, like, my Star Wars Underworld doc and, like, start typing up the news, like, right as it breaks around, like, 11 a.m. or something.
Sounds
like,
about
social
right.
media post, and I'm, like, typing away on my computer, and I publish it. And my professor, she looks at me and she goes, "What are you doing?" And, like, usually I am, very attentive in class, and our lecture was on social media and breaking news on social media.
You're kidding.
So I'm not even kidding.
Irony.
So I looked at her and I said, "I'm actually covering breaking news right now, Professor." And I was, like, so scared of something I'm going to get kicked out of my lecture. And she's like, "Oh, what's it about?" I said, "Well, it's on Star Wars. Star Wars social media actually just broke the news that they've named the film The Force Awakens, and they're dropping episode 7 from the title." And she was like, "Oh, okay, that's great." And then, like, I was like, "Well, am I not in trouble or anything?" And then I, like, showed her the post, and then we just moved on with class. And I've never been so scared in my life, but, like,
that's great.
It was covering breaking news, and it was on the lecture, and I got the post up. So that's what I do for the Star Wars Underworld. Almost get kicked out of class.
That's so good. That's so good.
But it was on. It was important. It was very important to me,
That's
so
right.
I had to cover that.
Well,
it only
cool
took like
that
10 minutes.
Well, that's cool, and it's cool that your professor was like that as well.
Yeah, I didn't expect her to be that generous.
Very cool. Well, Lillian, it's been really fun to chat with you, and we're really excited to. I'd love to, as I said, to read your paper because I think it would be really cool to see some of the connections you make. I think those are fascinating things, and one of the things that's so great about being able to do Coffee with Kenobi with Corey is we get to talk to intelligent fans who have so many different things to say, and they paint the world in different ways for us to enjoy Star Wars, and we thank you for that.
Thank you very much for having me on.
You bet. And before we let you go, we definitely have to ask you our 5 questions that we ask all of our guests at Coffee with Kenobi to show the commonality that we all share. And they're pretty much just one-word, one-sentence answers. And Corey, why don't you go ahead and start?
Sure. What is your favorite Star Wars movie?
Hands down, The Empire Strikes Back.
Very good. And who is your favorite character?
Boba Fett, and that's why Empire Strikes Back is my favorite movie.
Oh, nice.
Very good. Very good.
It's subtle.
Yes. Right. So your favorite line of dialogue or film moment?
Okay, so it's in A New Hope, and it's when Han Solo is talking to the official, and he's like, everything's under control, situation normal. And they're like, what happened? And he's like, oh, we had a slight weapons malfunction. And then after a while, he's like, oh, we're all fine here. How are you? And that's just my favorite part ever. I always do that to people. They're like, so what's up? How are you today? And I'm like, good. How are you? In like Han Solo's tone of voice.
If you collect, what is your favorite collectible that you own?
Well, I have a few action figures, but not enough to be a collector. But it's probably all my Star Wars Insider magazines. I have some that my dad actually bought back when like Attack of the Clones actors were rumored. It was like Daniel Logan playing like Unknown. So that's probably my favorite thing, like old Insider.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Magazines, yeah.
Highly recommend Star Wars Insider.
Love them.
And I'd say if you have one action figure, you're a collector, so don't worry about it.
Is that the rule?
I think that's the rule. You have to have one, but that's
very
good enough. So good enough for us. So what particular messages or themes about the Star Wars saga resonate or speak to you?
I think just the whole theme of hope and moving forward. I just really enjoy that. Like each film, there's just like this hope going, even when, it's Revenge of the Sith, there's still this hope that there's still good inside Anakin. And there's, in A New Hope, obviously, there's a new hope for the Jedi, and just going forward, just there's this theme about hope. And that's just what I love about the Star Wars films.
I like that.
That's perfect. Well, again, Lillian, thank you so much for being on Coffee with Kenobi and having a cup of coffee with us. Where can people reach out to you on social media if they want to ask you a question or just say hello?
You can follow me on Twitter. It's at Lillian Skye. That's SKYE, like with an underscore. And don't follow like Lillian Skye without the underscore, because it's like a Justin Bieber fan account.
Oh, yeah, we definitely won't do that.
No.
Or I have a blog that I post on. It's Fangirls in the Force.
Perfect. Well, thank you again so much, Lillian, and I hope you have a great evening and good luck with everything at school, and we look forward to chatting with you in the future.
Thank you very much, and may the Force be with you.
And now, let's join Rob Wainfer as he pours your espresso shot with the Bearded Trio.
And now, your espresso shot with the Bearded Trio.
Welcome, everybody, to another espresso shot with the Bearded Trio with me, Rob Wainfer, bringing you all the latest on Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, and John Williams. And we're going to start with some Jurassic World news. Good Morning America has confirmed, and no surprise really, after a document leak last year, that Jurassic World will see a new TV spot during the next Super Bowl, which is to be played on February the 1st, and it's the 49th Super Bowl. With a trailer already out for the new Dino movie, don't be surprised if this is just a blink and you'll miss it TV spot. Jurassic World will hit US and UK screens on June the 12th, so look out for that TV spot during the Super Bowl. Sticking with Jurassic World, and we get to see, for the very first time, a sneak peek at the Lego Jurassic World, thanks to French Lego fan site Jurassic Bricks. Now, on the cover of this Jurassic World Lego set, you get to see what looks like a T-Rex, but you also get to see velociraptors, and in Lego form, we get to see B.D. Wong and Chris Pratt's character as well. Now, these sets are set to be released in June, just in time for the opening of Jurassic World in the cinemas, which will be on June the 15th. So stay tuned for that, and check out the website to see the new cover for the Lego Jurassic World set. Now, James Clark has sent an email to the Bearded Trio to inform us about this month's 3D World magazine. Issue 191 in the magazine, James Clark has written a very informative article on the new facilities of Industrial Light and Magic in London. Now, James tells us issue 191 of 3D World magazine is now on sale and includes my studio profile of ILM London. The piece includes comments from John Knoll, CCO of ILM, and Ben Morris of ILM London about their forthcoming creative work. He also told us that he also has included conversations he had in October with none other than Kathleen Kennedy. So make sure you check out 3D World magazine this month, issue 191. Now, what uses 3 rolls of duct tape, 108 glue sticks, 18 large boxes of cardboard, a few all-nighters, and 1 adorable puppy? Yes, you've guessed it. It's the new video called Indiana Bones, and if you haven't caught this yet, you have to watch this video. It stars, as mentioned, a very adorable puppy as Indiana Jones up against Germans, or in his case, kittens. Now, I'm a cat person, so I wanted the cats to win in this video, but I'll let them off because the dog is so cute. This is produced and directed by Zach King and Jaden Gauthier. I hope you pronounced your name right. And if you haven't seen it yet, any Indiana Jones fan must see this. It's called Indiana Bones, and I'll put the link in the description for you. Now, we've probably already seen the wonderful Drew, the man behind the poster documentary. It's been available on Netflix in America and available to buy also in America. But Eric Sharkey, the director of the documentary about Drew Struzan, put on his Facebook page that the DVD will be coming out for the first time in the UK. You can pre-order now for £11 on Amazon, and it's out on February the 16th, 2015. Make sure you check it out. You won't be disappointed. Frank Marshall has recently given an interview to Collider.com. Now, in the interview, Frank Marshall discusses the possible Goonies 2 movie, and he reveals that there isn't a script yet, and they don't actually have an idea. But he did say that they're not going to rush it, him and Richard Donner. They don't want fans to be disappointed. They want it to be a good movie. He did actually reveal that it's not going to be a sequel, but he wants it to be in the Amblin spirit of Goonies, using Frank Marshall's own words. So there we go. No idea yet, no script, but they look like they want to take some time over this to make it a good one. Well, that's it for your quick news roundup on Spielberg, George Lucas and John Williams. Thanks for listening. Catch up with all the latest and daily news on the 3 on thebeardedtrio.com, and we're also on Facebook. Just search for The Bearded Trio, and we're also on Twitter at The Bearded Trio as well. Thanks again for listening. I'm Rob Wainford, and now I'll pass you back to Dan and Corey. Thank you. Goodbye.
Han Solo, Rebel Soldier, Lando Calrissian, and Bespin Guard, each sold separately. From Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back collection, new from Kenner.
Looking? Found someone you have, I would say,
Your lightsabers will make a fine addition to my collection.
First bit of collector's news here. We're talking about some Star Wars headphones that are coming out. Now, these are through 50 Cent, his the rapper, yes, and the movie star.
You said that, I'm convinced that you know so much about the rap culture.
I do. I'm this real Slim Shady, yes.
Wow.
I will stand up now. That's about all I know. That's my extent.
From the late 90s, that would have been really awesome.
No, that's extent. I'm sorry. It's not my brain right at the moment. But, I have some previous headphones that they debuted. I think it was at Target, had some Star Wars headphones. They were R2-D2 ones that I got from our kids.
The same brand? Were they the Fitty Cent ones? Fitty, that's right.
Fitty Cent? Is that
that's
okay?
right.
No, I don't think they were. I think they were just like a Panasonic or something like that. They weren't.
You totally
obviously
just made that up. I can tell.
Well, whatever they were, I can't remember what they were, but my kids have them and they broke. So
that is a ringing endorsement.
It is a ringing endorsement. Don't get that. Let's promote 50 cents version maybe here.
Yeah,
and maybe there are some quality devices. They look really cool.
Did you see the price? Let's do it. This is one of my friend Scott's favorite thing when we talk about prices of stuff.
Please.
They are. Where are they? I clicked the wrong thing.
They're not 50 cent, right?
No.
That'd be kind of nice,
not.
wouldn't it?
They're expensive.
I would assume, since 50 cent is endorsing them.
Yeah, they are. I think they're. Why did I feel like? Oh, here we go. It says we're not savvy to pricing yet, but last year's headphones retailed at $179.95.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm thinking is this: my son got some Beats. For Christmas, and they are like some kind of wonderful. I mean, not only when you put them on your ears, you can't even tell you have them on, but they're just comfortable and they're noise canceling.
Mm-hmm.
These are pretty phenomenal looking. We have R2, we have Chewie, we have Vader, and we have the TIE Fighter. I'd probably pick the TIE Fighter one because it's the most innocuous, but it's still pretty cool. And I know that Star Wars Insider is running something in their new issue where you can win a pair. I think that would be my way to go.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, they're cool, but if for $200 for headphones, I'm either going to get Beats or I'm going to use the money for something else. Not that they're not awesome.
No, not that they're awesome.
If you're passionate about music, and I mean, this would be a cool way to watch Rebels. Or to listen to Coffee with Kenobi. Who wouldn't want to listen to Coffee with Kenobi?
You go.
With headphones from 50 Cent?
Well, they mentioned
a sentence I never thought I'd say in my life. By the way,
it's been said. Mark it down. Yes. Yeah. Well, I want to mention too. They had some designs from last year, which I maybe I didn't know this, but maybe I don't remember. We didn't report on this, but they had the Stormtrooper Rebel Alliance Boba Fett version and an Imperial version. I can remember seeing those online somewhere, maybe through a website or something. But yeah, if you're interested in checking these out, check a link in the show notes and let us know what you think.
Yeah, and if you get them, write a review or send us in a review. We'd be happy to share it. Next collector thing we have is there are fan wrap decals. We've seen these, a number of different ways. There's a pretty fun one. These come out in February, 1999. It's got like cartoonish versions of Solo, Vader, Chewie, Stormtrooper, Leia, in her Bouge costume, and in her A New Hope, Django. It's got the whole gang. It's pretty fun. The most fun one that I've ever seen was from Etsy, and it was different color AT-ATs and the female AT-AT.
I see those
stuff. Yeah. Do you have family decals?
I don't. My wife wants to get some, but we just haven't found the right version or the right style. So I don't know.
Disney has some cool ones, but
the Mossier ones, yeah.
Yeah. These are fun. Let us know what you think. If there's something you'd like to invest in, or even better, if you get them, send us a picture. We'd be happy to share it.
They also, I'm looking at the image here on Big Bad Toy Store, and it looks like they're fairly large. They have it on a side door of a car, and it takes up almost the whole side of the door of the car that it's on. So I'm assuming these are not necessarily as big as like you'd see on a minivan or something like that. Yeah, but these are pretty cool. I would like to see a Rebels version of these.
Oh yeah, that would be cool.
I think that'd be cool.
Hi, this is Mark Bellomo, author of The Ultimate Guide to Vintage Star Wars Action Figures, 1977 and 1985, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z and Corey Clubb. This is the podcast you're looking for.
Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
I must be allowed to speak.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
Our topic for show number 30 is vintage Kenner Star Wars collecting. What is it about this classic line that is so endearing? What are some of your prized moments concerning the collectibles, and which are some of your favorite? Joining us on this topic is Mark Bellomo, a collector and an author. Mark may very well be the most accomplished aficionado of toys, not named Steve Sansweet. His book, The Ultimate Guide to Vintage Star Wars Action Figures 1977 to 1985, is an incredible tour de force of the vintage Kenner Star Wars line, and his perspective would be invaluable to fans. We're happy to have a cup of coffee with him. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, Dan. Hi, Corey. How are you guys tonight?
Oh, we are fantastic. It is certainly a pleasure. Corey and I were just talking before we were able to speak with you this evening, and you reached out to us probably about, a week or two ago, and the ball just started rolling, and we were very blessed to get a copy of your amazing book, and this is just going to be a wonderful conversation. We're just really excited to get started with it, so we'll just start out with our first question, Mark. What is it about Star Wars that is such a perfect fit as a toy collectible?
For me, and I collect a bunch of different lines, the one thing that I really respond to when I'm scouring retail aisles or secondary stores or online for toys is I'm a playset junkie. I love action figure playsets. And I think because of the oil embargo and because of the cost of plastic, which kind of forced action figure producers to scale down action figures in the 70s, that gave rise to, Star Wars figures and Micronauts figures and smaller size figures, and that allowed toy companies to make playsets. And I think, some of the Star Wars playsets, particularly in the vintage line, which is what we're going to talk about tonight, are my favorite playsets in the history of action figures. Dagobah, the Death Star space station, there's so much playability, it almost leaves me speechless. The Creature Cantina, I can play with these over and over, and every 6 months I'll take these out and dust them off again and set them up. I love play sets, and I think Star Wars is really the all-encompassing line that really encouraged me to collect them all because there was so much.
Well, you said when you said play sets before you even mentioned the examples, I instantly went to the Death Star, which is one of my absolute favorite not only play sets but just toys of all time. And I recently found my old one in my attic, and it's incomplete, and that's sort of soul crushing. But reading your descriptions of the Death Star playset and everything else in this, it just is invigorating. It's just nice. You're speaking my language, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, and thank you about that. I think more than anything else, that was really the goal of this book. I mean, in the introduction, you mentioned Steve Sansweet, and there are guys that have far, far, far greater knowledge than I do on the subject when it comes to depth of variations and card backs. And, I'm talking about Ron Salvatore and Gus Lopez and Steve Sansweet and that magnificent Kellerman book. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to put out a guide that would be fun to read for the diehard aficionado, which is why I added a lot of flavor text, incorporating elements of the now defunct expanded universe. And I wanted to have some utility in the book where if you took a box of old Star Wars figures and vehicles and dumped it out on your kitchen table, you could pair up the figures and the accessories, and if you wanted to, sell them on eBay or find out what you were missing. So I wanted this book to be accessible so that you could give it to your sister's boyfriend who was a Star Wars fan, and he would be as tickled about reading the book as you were. So I wanted to appeal to a large audience with this book.
Well, it certainly hits all kinds of those points, and I'm just going to put it out there right now. I didn't grow up with these figures, so it's hard for me to relate to, running to the stores and picking them up and getting them. I know Dan's a big collector of mine. He can have, memories of looking through magazines and picking out characters and reading about them and stuff. So it's hard for me to relate because I didn't come from that era, but I did play with the toys. My cousin had quite a few of the toys themselves, and so I can relate playing with them, and that's actually started off my fandom from my cousin's collection. So I guess my follow-up question to that is, how did you get involved in collecting both Star Wars and these other lines?
when I was a kid, like in elementary school or even earlier than that, I was picked on and I was bullied pretty relentlessly. So I was the smallest kid in my class, and I had glasses, and I was raised kind of in a European household, and so I was a pretty easy target. I think my graduating class from middle school was like 18. It was this very small Catholic school. So I retreated into escapist fantasy and science fiction. I was pretty introverted, so action figures, that was a way for me to escape from, I guess, the doldrums of modern life and imaginatively being Hoth for an afternoon. And action figures, quite literally, for a period of my life, they probably saved my life. Having that place to go to, and I know bullying is a pretty heavy topic today, and I know maybe a few people who are listening to this maybe had a similar experience.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, and I think maybe why I love the 70s and the 80s so much, when you look at creators like George Lucas and Larry Hama, who is the brains behind the
Joe.
And Bob Budiansky, who created all those magnificent tech spec bio cards for the Generation 1 of Transformers. These guys created these fictions, and they didn't create these for children. They created these imaginative universes so detailed and so deep that I bought into the fiction wholeheartedly. The suspension of disbelief, I guess, allowed an entire generation to buy into what these toy companies were selling, because maybe those creators didn't look at this as a way to sell toys. They looked at it as a way to further their creative spirit. And that's why I love Star Wars and all these 70s and 80s properties so much. It probably saved my life at one point.
You know what? There's just so much to what you speak that it's going to resonate with so many of our listeners, and we appreciate you sharing that. It's almost like, when you put it that way, Kenner wasn't selling action figures; they were selling memories. And Steve Sansweet, when he was on with us, he had talked about people loved the movies so much they wanted to bring a piece of it home and feel connected to it even more than they did when they were in the cinemas. And Kenner completely nailed it with this, and I'm sure you'd agree. And I can tell just by poring over your book, it's just been unbelievably fun and nostalgic to read, and the prose in it is so strong too. It's just so much fun. So how did you decide on the design of this book? You mentioned there are a lot of others out there, but there's something very unique about yours.
Well, I mean, if you look at some of the other books out there, and Steve Sansweet, he's the eminence grise of all of this. He's that man in the corner who has all the knowledge and has done it, and has he's the one that we all revere, I think. Gus Lopez, what he's done.
Yes.
The Kellerman books, Pablo Hidalgo, all those guys. I just wanted to make something maybe a little bit more accessible, maybe probably a little less detailed than what diehard aficionados are looking for. I'm not going to go into detail about the different variations in card backs, but I really wanted for the first time to focus on the narrative, to focus on the characters. I wanted, people to know before all of the expanded universes completely wiped off the face of the map. I wanted to give Tim Zahn his props and talk about Han Solo's backstory, talk about what happened with Chewbacca, talk about all that stuff. And I don't want to ruin anything, but this is the first time Krause has, when I submitted my first manuscript, maybe like 10 years ago to Krause, it was for my first G.I. Joe book. I handed them like 250,000 words, and they handed me back 120,000 words and said, let's try this again, kid. So we went back and forth, and, I had to cut a good deal of words out of it, just excise it, because it was too long, it was too, verbose. But with this, they really let me flex my muscles in terms of the narrative. And I wanted this to be a book that you could put on your coffee table, and you couldn't read this in one night.
And nor would you want to. It's something you just want to savor, actually.
Yeah, I wanted to be something that you could pick up and read over the course of a few days, and almost use it as a reference guide too. Like, okay, what the hell are those two head tails on Big Fortuna? What are they called? Why are they there? What do they do? Stuff like that. What are the differences in some of the skiff guards in terms of race? What is a reptile mammal, and are wampas related to tauntauns? Stuff like that. I just wanted to get into some of that detail that usually isn't present in action figure guides.
Exactly, and you do it in spades here. Another friend of ours, Jeff McGee, runs a great toy cast called Talking Toys, and I believe it was Dan and I were on there, I think, a while ago, and we talked about toys, and we were interviewed for toys. I can't remember, but I had mentioned the Empire's Royal Guard and his cloak. For some reason, I mentioned his cloak wasn't coming off or couldn't come off or something like that. But I'm looking at page 95 in your guide here, and you've got him here with his cloak off and his cloak on. You showed different variations of each of the figures in various positions standing. You've got them, with all their accessories. This thing is so in depth and so, complete. I'm curious to know too, as you wrote this and got this kind of prepared, what were some of the challenges that you faced in doing so?
There are the major challenge for me for a book like this, for all of the guides that I put out, is always prices. That's always the hurdle. And listen, I'll say off the record, but it's going on the record the moment I say it. I don't self-publish my books. I work for two book companies. I work for Krause Publications, and that's who I put out my guidebooks for or through. And I work for IDW Comics, and I work on some of their lines, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Real Ghostbusters. When I put out a guidebook for Krause Publications, they insist, it is in the contract, that it must also function as a price guide.
Interesting.
Well, that it's in the contract, so it has to be there. Now, there are a couple issues with price guides, and you ask, what was the exact question? What type of challenges did I face?
Sure.
Yes.
Whenever I write a collectible guide and I write the manuscript for this book, the manuscript for this book was essentially finished in December or January of last year. I'll let that sink in for a second.
Yeah,
yeah.
Usually, the last thing I write is the prices, which means, for 3 or 4 months, I've got to do a completed item search on eBay, and I'm contacting guys that I know in the Pacific Northwest and in the Midwest and in the South and in the Northeast and for prices. But the problem is, when this manuscript goes in, let's say late February, early March of this year, those prices are now, when the book comes out, a year out of date. And worse than that, we're experiencing a boom.
Yes.
In the last year and a half, 2 years in Star Wars prices. So that's the complication. And what I'll say, the great disclaimer is, use the prices in the book as a guide.
Right. And you're very clear on that too. I'm glad that you brought that up.
Well, and that's all that they are. They're a guide. Now, the good thing for me is, because the prices by, let's say, next December are going to be far different than they are now. And believe me, if you can invest in high-end Star Wars collectibles from Kenner at a decent price now, do it, because they're only going to go up. By next year, they're going to be even more out of date, and that'll allow me to do a second edition and correct some of the prices and update them. So, that it's good and bad for me to have prices in a book, because, my G.I. Joe book is going into the third edition soon, and one of the main reasons is because we have to update the prices. So it allows us to put out a new edition, add some information, tweak the book. That's one of the hurdles. The other hurdle is probably, what do you include? What don't you include? Why do you include it? I always say to myself, if I have to disseminate every figure, every accessory, every creature, every playset, every vehicle, every weapon system, every mail away and promotional from 1977 until 1985, I have to limit my scope, which means for me, I limit it to domestic product only. If an item was available to the general public domestically, even for a limited amount of time, then it should be in the book. If it was featured in a Kenner pack-in catalog, it should be in the book. And that's,
sure.
That means that I'm going to have to go back and get, the Power of the Force coins. I'm going to have to make sure that I have all the mail-away figures sealed in their original baggies with their original mailer boxes. That means I'm going to have to get all of the vinyl minifigure collector cases with unapplied labels and the inserts, like the prototype Boba Fett label insert in there. So yes, it limits the scope, but you want to make sure you have the major variations too, because there are so many variations of Star Wars figures. I just could not post them all. So it was, one of the other challenges was scope. How do I limit it? And I think prices and limiting the scope of the book were the two biggest challenges for me.
And they were very well met. And that's when I first picked it up, I thought, well, how is he going to channel this and focus this? Because like you said, it can go so many different directions. And you brought up variants, and I'm glad that you did. And many of our listeners are very aware of variants, and some really have no idea. Could you kind of explain to us what a variant is and why they exist?
Well, I'll go with more dictionary definitions. There are two words that people use, sometimes interchangeably. This is how I look at the word variant. The dictionary definition of variant is different or alternative. And I suggest that a variant is deliberate. It's a deliberate variation or variant. I like the word variant as deliberate. Different variant covers of retail incentive comic books used to encourage stores to sell more books. Marvel Legends is a great example of variants. The Marvel Legend Iron Fist variants, if you look at those, he had a red costume and a green costume. The Wasp variants. I like to use the word variation when I talk about those. For instance, when I'm talking about the Luke Skywalker and Jedi Knight, there's a sewn shut Jedi robe variation of its clasp and a snap together variation of the robe that Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight.
That's right.
Those are variations because I don't think it was deliberate. I think, this, if you look at 10, if you went on eBay right now and you bought 10 or 15, let's say, Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight figures or Squid Head figures or Bib Fortuna figures, and you lined them all up on a kitchen table, and you compared the soft good capes or cloaks or robes they come with to one another, you'll see slight variations in material because this factory may have this material, and it looks very similar to this one, but we ran out of this. Well, we can't find the exact shade. It's almost exact, but there's a little cross-hatching on this one that isn't apparent there. I think variations are not deliberate. Where variants are I look at it as advertising. You've got to get that a Marvel Infinite series variant of Spider-Woman. A variation is something that crops up, particularly in the vintage Star Wars line, that wasn't deliberate. Because I don't think back then they even advertised anything as having a rare variant or a rare variation. I think sometimes molds are lost, sometimes molds break. If you look at some of the figures, for example, look at the Han Solo figure from 1978. There's a large head and a small head.
I was just going to say that I have the small head, by the way. I want to put that on the record.
Yeah, I don't think that was deliberate by any means. Same thing with the different colored hair for Luke Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
You've got kind of a blonde hair of the original Luke Skywalker, a brown hair, kind of an orangish hair. I think, those variations weren't deliberate. I always look at variant as something that's deliberate. A variant cover for incentive. And that's usually what, in modern days, variants are used for. Their incentive. The reason why Marvel Legends will, Infinite Series will recolor something is to get you to go back into the store again and pick up, they've used that same mold for the same figure. They've just recolored it slightly and you're going to buy it. So they get two uses out of one mold, but they're getting you back into that store as an incentive. That's what variants do.
And how much would you say it's an artistic decision, and how much you think is it purely financially driven?
Well, I think back then, it was back then. I don't think finance had anything to do with it. It's just we need to make. Listen, they made like 250 to 300 million vintage Star Wars figures from 1978 till 1985. So they're making millions of that original Luke Skywalker figure. So they pumped him out from different factories, and if they had to use this type of plastic, I mean, if you buy 100 vintage stormtroopers, popped them off their cards, and compared the blaster rifles, there is going to be some minor ding marks here, not ding marks, but circles here or circles there. Go to imperialgunnery.com if you want your mind blown about how many variations exist on this stuff. I think it was just, I don't think it was financial. I think it was getting the product out there. I think nowadays variants are a way to incentivize consumerism. Meaning,
sure, well said.
Yeah, if you order 100 copies of Amazing Spider-Man #1, your comic book shop, if you're a retailer, if you own a comic book store, and you order 100 copies of this #1 issue, we're going to give you one, shiny gold foil, or one, this artist only does this cover of this comic book that you might be able to sell for $50 to $100 because you got one for every 100 issues that you ordered. And I think, limited edition variants of figures nowadays exists all the time. And that incentivizes it. Maybe it's just a different color, but it's born out of the collect 'em all, gotta have them mentality that I grew up with.
It's savvy marketing, and for many people listening now, including myself, hearing you talk about this in like gold foil covers and stuff, it makes me drool.
It's the 90s, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's the 90s, true, but it makes you drool because it's so exciting. Before we shift on to, I want to talk more about the prose that you put into the book, which is exquisite, but I want to talk more about. Do you propose, and I'm sure that you'll agree with me, I'm going to propose that the reason when the Power of the Force figures came out in the mid 90s, there was a renaissance of Star Wars action figures, and I feel like during that time period, the Kenner line was amusing, but it wasn't the main focal point. And now with The Force Awakens and the prequels kind of coming and going, and we're moving into a new era of Star Wars and fandom, I feel like that has created a new nostalgia and brought in the old fans who maybe were disenfranchised with the prequels. And this is one of the reasons why the Kenner line is more popular again.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's so iconic. I think, everything that you see in this book, everything from that vintage line is so iconic and so masterfully designed. And I know, the big complaint that I get from some younger collectors is, well, the detail isn't there.
Oh.
The detail isn't there. And I said to them, if you look at the original Land Speeder, just take a look at the engineering of that toy. If you look at the engineering of the, the starfighters that we got from this vintage line, that A-wing and the Y-wing and the B-wing are still marvels of engineering.
Absolutely.
Look at I look at the Sand People's molded robe on their legs, or Ben Kenobi's molded robe around his legs. It's fascinating how they kind of suggested a robe where none existed because they used plastic. I think, or the remote control sandcrawler. That radio controlled Jawa sandcrawler that they popped out in '79, it's amazing. It's astonishing that stuff existed. It's the droid factory where you could build an R2-D2 that actually had a third leg. Really, really clever. Everything they did. It was a revolutionary toy line, top to bottom. I love toys. I love this line. I love the aesthetics of it. I love it, and I just wanted to tell viewers, I make that mistake all the time, that I don't buy these toys as an excuse to write these books. I write these books as an excuse to buy more toys. When I did my Totally Tubular 80s toy book in 1980 in 2010, I included probably about 150 different toy lines in that book, a page each focusing on all the major toy lines in the 1980s. And that came out in 2010, right when the market was still really low. We're in the throes of the Great Recession. So, I needed to get a couple samples of Dino Riders figures. I needed to get a couple samples of Inhumanoids figures. And I needed a couple samples of all these different great toy lines. What I found myself doing is I found myself finishing all the toy lines that I started in that book. Okay, I've got to finish Inhumanoids now. I've got to finish Dino Riders now. I've got to finish Battle Beasts now, GoBots, all these. For me, it's a compulsion, I guess. But every night, right before I go to bed at 1 or 2 in the morning, I shut down my computer. I'll turn the TV on. I'll take out a couple boxes of toys and take the stuff out and look at it and play with it. I do that all the time. I love this stuff. I love these toys. And I think my appreciation of the aesthetics really started with vintage Star Wars.
You're passionate about it, and it's exciting to hear. I mean, you can just tell enthusiasm in your voice there, and just talking about it. You're obviously a passionate fan for what you do, and it's kudos to you for putting all this together. I mean, it can't be any easy task to do such a thing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not easy. I put a lot of pressure on myself to try and get it right, and when I don't, I take it very hard, and I take it very personally, which is why the prices are out of date, and it's driving me crazy, and I want to up them, but I know I'll have a chance, and there are mistakes here and there are mistakes. Well, I will correct them, but I want everything to be perfect, even though it never will be perfect. But if you just accept second best, if you accept a product that isn't as good as it could be, then you're just fooling yourself. So I'm never going to be satisfied. I already want to redo this book. I'm ready to go. But I feel that about every project that I write. I feel that everything can be improved upon. But that's the nature of writing. At some point, you just got to take it and put it aside and say, okay, that's enough. You tweaked it enough.
Right. Now, switching gears here a little bit, you touched upon the expanding universe, and you were kind of tying that into this book. So I'm curious to know too: is how do you feel about the shift recently from the expanding universe to Legends line and the Lucasfilm story group, and how did that impact you as you wrote up each character for this book?
Well, I can't even say that it really affected me at all. And I'm not saying because I don't like the decision or I do like the decision. I turned this manuscript in February or March, and that decision came afterwards. So,
Yes.
I had no idea that it was coming down the pipe. So what did I do? I turned in the manuscript and I went, oh, that's an interesting decision. Well, we have a year or so before the movie comes out, and I'm sure they're going to change some of the EU backstories, the Legends backstories, based on what's going to be revealed in the new film. So we'll see what happens. What that means is if they do change the origin of Han Solo or Chewbacca in upcoming novels, and I'm sure your listeners understand that now after this edict was revealed, the only canonical stories that exist as fact in the Star Wars universe are the films, the Clone Wars animated series, the Star Wars Rebels series, and future novels going forward. So, let's see what they're going to put back in, and I guess I'm going to have to modify the second edition of this book accordingly. But that leaves the question, like I'm opening the book right now, and I'm looking at the Imperial dignitary figure saying, whew, thank God he appeared in the movie. But is that backstory, is his name and his backstory, is that going to be, is Simalu going to be a character there anymore? So, I went with what we had. I think it's a fun read based on everything that every Star Wars fan has read for the last, 35 years. I think, I read like about 120, 150 books, and I referenced about 75 of them in the bibliography.
I love the bibliography, by the way. Side note.
Well, but it's one of those things where, if I used Wikipedia, and if I used, if I'm defining a man, and I get that information from this entry, then I have to say where I got that information from. So I had to do it.
Absolutely. The context is just invaluable, and it helps. Plus, one of the things I like, I hate to interrupt what you're saying because it's just so great, but one of the things that I loved about perusing this book and just devouring it, because that's exactly what I did, is that not only was it nostalgic looking at the images, but the background is just so tight and gives you such a reflection on these characters. And you rarely see that in this kind of a book. So I feel like it's part historical and biographical in essence when you're looking at these action figures, but you also get the beautiful images, which are all right from your collection too. Is that correct?
Everything in any book that I write comes from my own collection. I have about 60,000 action figures and about 120,000 comics.
Wow. That's so great.
That's awesome.
It's like, why didn't we grow up in the same neighborhood together?
Because I didn't have any of that as a kid. That's stuff that I got as an adult working, 4 jobs and 18 hours a day for 25 years.
Wow.
No trust fund, no lottery. I just, I work a lot. And every cent that I make on books goes right back into the collection.
All dedication.
Well, but it goes back to what you guys were saying, specifically, Dan, what you were saying about the book. You're going through it and you're reading these stories and they become characters. The reason why I took so much time in rendering their fictional backstories is because to me, they were characters. I was a kid who probably had, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Chewbacca, Ben Obi-Wan Kenobi in my belt loops when I was, running around the yard. I played with my toys. A lot of this stuff is from my own collection, but it's stuff that I had to buy maybe, scouring the pages of Toy Shop magazine in 1990 and 1991 after I graduated from high school because, my C-3PO's chrome was completely worn off. So I had to replace a lot of this stuff. Plus, if it was an older vehicle, I had to, find original labels or really nice repro labels and wipe them down and put them on there. So I wanted to make sure a lot of the toys that were in there were in good shape. But, it's a labor of love. Like you said, it takes a lot of work. Yeah, it does, but the
labor of love.
Here's the best example that I give. I was really, really sick in the summer of 2006, 2006. I was flew dying sick for a period of 2 weeks. And the first Transformers movie was being released, I think in August. I don't remember. And I had to get, I think the manuscript for the book was written, and I had to get photos taken of all my Transformers toys. The problem is, because you manipulate Transformers as toys so much when you're a kid, and a good deal of the stuff in my book came from my collection when I was a kid, a lot of the labels were worn. So I placed an order with Delta Star ReproLabels.com, like a $1,000 order for 150 to 200 vintage Transformers. Now I'm sick as a dog, death's door sick, clogged ears, couldn't hear a thing, fever of 102, 103. But I was watching episodes of, because they weren't streaming on Netflix yet, I was watching episodes from the Transformer box set of the animated series. I was wiping down every single one of my old Transformers and using Delta Star's Repro labels, making sure they were perfectly put on, that they were a perfect match, wiping them down, cleaning them, using a screw to take some of it apart so I can make sure it was what. For those, the one thing that got me through that really bad sickness, that really bad time, was looking forward to waking up out of that funk and wiping down my old Transformers that I had when I was a kid, putting all new labels on them, and knowing that I was going to preserve and memorialize those toys in a book, because these are things that got me through another tough time in my life. So multiple times, toys have been that motif that crops up. When I'm having a tough time, I think, dude, what are you complaining about? You work at a college during the day, and at night you write books about toys.
Some of the coolest toys that ever existed.
So, they really, I use that line, saved my life. I mean, whenever stuff gets thick, whenever it gets ugly, you can always retreat to this stuff. Put on the films, take out your Star Wars figures, or what I often do is I'll take out my vintage collection figures and then my old school vintage figures. The vintage collection stuff from 2010 to 2013.
Sure.
And I'll pair them and I'll look at the weapons, and I still love this stuff. I still collect everything. I love toys, man.
It's nostalgic and it's fun. Not only does it, you mentioned that, the idea of what it did for you and how it helped you to get through some tough times. I'm sure that a lot of your books are doing the same things for people too. So that's a wonderful gift as well. And we're talking about these toys. We got to get into this, because I'm really tempted to just run up into the attic and just grab all my Kenner figures and bring them on down, because eventually when this office gets rolling, it's going to be awesome. And I'm going to be using a lot of what you had written as part of the way I'm going to display some of this stuff. So I'm really curious, what are some of your favorites from this line?
Let's be more specific.
Sure, happily. You want to go figures and vehicles and play sets, or even more than that?
I know this sounds strange because his pose is not great. That Luke Skywalker, Hoth Luke Skywalker, man, there's something about his face. And it's odd because the way the feet are posed is not great, because they kind of jut out when you're standing them up, and it's an odd action pose. But that Luke Skywalker Hoth battle gear, I loved that figure. I loved the way the scarf hung. I loved that you could put his rifle, his A29 blaster rifle, A295 blaster. I loved how you could put that over his shoulder.
Me too.
I just loved that figure.
Before Luke came out, did you use the regular Hoth Rebel Soldier and pretend like it was Luke? I know I did.
Absolutely. I used that regular Hoth Rebel Soldier as Luke, and conversely, I would use multiples of Luke X-Wing Pilot for other, Rebel pilots, for other vehicles.
Oh, yes. It was almost indistinguishable as Mark Hamill anyway.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Now, creatures, I think that Wampa was so odd because have you ever seen a Wampa box in person?
Yes.
The Wampa box, that's a small box, man.
Extremely.
That literally, it's a tiny little box that barely fits that Wampa figure, but that's a cool toy. There's something very sleek about it. And I know I brought this up on the radio and I think in a television appearance once. There's something, all right. There's a British sitcom called Blackadder.
Oh, yes. John Cleese.
Rowan Atkinson. And if you look at the Elizabethan series, which is Blackadder 1, 2? Yeah, I think it's Blackadder, or is it Blackadder 3? Yeah, Blackadder 2. It's Elizabethan, then Georgian. So Blackadder 2, it's Elizabethan, and Blackadder's got this dog's body named Baldric. And they're sitting talking about portraits, the art of painting portraits in Elizabethan England. And Baldric says, my cousin says that paintings, and I'm paraphrasing, paintings aren't accurate these days. They paint the person to kind of a romantic, a platonic ideal. Instead of capturing the actual person, they capture some romanticized, idealized whole of that person. And I think that's what Kenner did a lot with their creatures and with their action figures. Because if you look at the Wampa, if you look at the Kenner Wampa action figure, and you put him next to a clip of the Wampa from Empire Strikes Back, they couldn't look more different. But when you see that Kenner Wampa figure, you immediately know Kenner Wampa. Same thing with Yoda. The same thing with that original Luke Skywalker figure. It looks nothing like Mark Hamill. Nothing like Mark Hamill.
No doubt.
Less like Mark Hamill if they tried. But you look at it and now you think, hey, that's Mark Hamill. That's Luke Skywalker. That's what I love about these is they're so iconic. And what that allowed, I think that what allowed me to do is as a kid, because they were so idealized, they were so almost amorphous, that it made them more imaginative. They were not anti-realistic, but they were iconic. I mean, yeah, they were anti-realistic. They were not very realistic in many cases, but once you got those couple of figures that were pretty realistic, like EV-99 from Power of the Force, mouth opening and closing with the lever, or the 12-inch Boba Fett, 13-inch tall Boba Fett figure. There were some of them where you're like, oh my God, the detail is just astounding. The R2-D2 with pop-up lightsaber. Some of these figures were really well rendered, but most of them, like the B-Wing pilot, I'm looking at the B-Wing pilot. He's got like Little Orphan Annie eyes, little two-dot eyes, and you're like, really, man? But then you've got these hyper-realistic, that Imperial Gunner figure is great. The folds. If you look at the Ben Kenobi, the only Ben Kenobi figure,
right?
You take his vinyl robe off, and you compare the bottom of his molded feet to the bottom of Anakin Skywalker's molded feet.
Yeah.
There is just a world of difference. So there was so much progress. There's something about his face in there. And I apologize. I have to apologize for this. When the book went into production, I mentioned that this is such a bad mistake. I mentioned that Anakin Skywalker in the film is portrayed by David Prowse, and it's absolutely not David Prowse. And that's going to be changed in the second edition.
Certainly.
Please don't crucify me for that. I just caught it reading it. But
no worries.
Well, I tried to change it, but some changes went in post, and some changes did not go in post. So But there's.
Well, we screwed up James Arnold Taylor and James Earl Jones's names and combined them into one person at one point either too. So we understand.
But there are certain mistakes that you make when you think you're doing the right thing. I think it was in second grade. You remember the Weekly Reader Book Club?
Oh yes.
Yeah, Weekly Reader Book Club. It was something that they did for kids in the 70s and early 80s to encourage kids to read. And you subscribed to books once a week, and they had a little quiz. And I remember third grade, Mrs. Brown in third grade, she made us read the entire rosary every morning, the entire rosary. So I remember we were doing the Weekly Reader Book Club, and the question was, who was the first African American baseball player? And listen, you're looking at, asthmatic, bedwetting, nerd, like, what? I know, I knew nothing about baseball at that point. So I raised my hand. I knew it's Jackie. I knew it's Jackie's. I knew it was Jackie, something Jackie. And she said, Mr. Bellomo, what is it? And I said, Jackie Gleason. That didn't help me try and dispel that nerd myth. So, but it's one of those things where action figures allowed me to escape from that stuff.
Did the teacher say you were going to go to the moon when you said that?
Yes, yeah. I don't think I'd even seen an episode of The Honeymooners at that point.
That's funny.
But there's something about toys and what Star Wars did, the expansiveness, getting back to the playset, the expansiveness of the line, how everything was interchangeable, this was the prototype for toy lines for forever. I just wish these people would understand, the marketing executives would understand that we need playsets back. I don't care if you use chipboard backdrops and vinyl. Heat seal this stuff. I don't care. We just give us our play sets again. The last good one we had was... What was the last good one we had for any toy? The last play set.
Well, I like the stuff, the Hall of Justice play set from the Superpowers line, but surely there's been something since then.
Well, what about the Hasbro Carbon Freeze Chamber?
That was cool. That was cool.
Good.
Or the USS Flag.
Oh yeah, Flag.
That was the dream when I was a kid.
See, I'm very fortunate that I have all that stuff, so I can look at it. But is there anything today? Do they make playsets anymore?
Not that I can't remember the last time I saw one.
I got the MTT, which was the Legacy Collection Millennium Falcon is essentially a playset, but no, it's a vehicle.
Right.
I had the
reaction figures. They made the Alien playset, which was an exclusive. That was last year. So
and that was cool.
They don't make playsets anymore, and I miss that. I love playsets. Kenner's. What were some of the best playsets? Kenner's Indiana Jones, The Well of Souls, or...
Oh, do you have that?
Yeah, I have. I have every figure, vehicle, weapon, accessory, creature playset, mail-away promotional for almost everything. Tertiary toy line. I have it. Yeah,
I hope you do an Indiana Jones book, because that would be fun. Ed Doster from the IndieCast would certainly love to talk with you about that.
Well, but it's one of those things where is there enough product to warrant a book, and more importantly, is there enough of an audience?
True.
To warrant a book. Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers, yes, but Indiana Jones, it all depends on what you put in it and what's the print run going to be.
It belongs in a museum, but it also belongs in my hands.
God, I love that line. Still to this day, I love that line. So,
that's great.
Yeah. Big place.
I remember as a kid, I had the Ghostbuster Firehouse playset. I loved that playset. That was a lot of fun.
Very delicate. I have two of those in my garage as we speak. Very delicate playset.
Those doors would never stay on.
The doors were a problem. Plus the white railing on the second floor.
Yeah.
But I was going through a few playsets last night, and I was preparing for this interview, looking through stuff, and I was looking at Kenner playsets in particular, whether it's the Dagobah playset or the Creature Cantina. Now, did you know that there was a there was a girls' toy line in the early 80s called Glamour Gals.
I remember that.
Okay, they were very much like Barbies, only they were 3 3/4 inches tall. They had rooted hair, and they were very similar to Barbies. They had wire legs, wire running through the legs, and they were posable like that. They made like a 4.5 foot long, Ocean Queen cruise ship playset that had sectioned off rooms like the USS Flag. It was in scale to Star Wars and G.I. Joe figures.
Wow.
It looked like the Love Boat. It was that deep. It had a doctor's office where, it had a doctor's chair and it had a pool and it had pennants. It's unbelievable. That was Kenner. And you know what the funny thing is? In that line, they had a mail-away stand for the Glamour Gals, these 3 3/4 inch tall fashion dolls, that used the exact same mold as the figure stand that was solicited with the early bird kit. That the original Star Wars stand, they reused that for the Glamour Gals line, only they cast it in black.
Really, really, really fun.
Yeah.
So much fun. I mean, we could talk for, gosh, it's almost like we need to have you on as a regular segment, because there's just so many things we could tear apart. When you and Jeff McGee talk, boy, is that going to be fun to hear you too.
You tell me when and where. If I have time, I'll come on. I have access to it. I've got about 3 or 4 15 by 20 foot storage spaces, a full basement, a full attic, and a full detached garage. And I protect.
Talk to us a little about maybe some of your favorite memories from this line that you talked about. Owning some of the original figures. What are some of your memories that coincide with maybe putting this book together, and you kind of had to, like you said, every night you kind of shut things down and pull some figures out and relive that stuff?
The way it works is when we're shooting, the photos for this book are taken by a woman by the name of Chris Candler. She's from Iola, Wisconsin, which is the headquarters for Krause Publications. So what they do is they ship her to my house. They fly her out here, and she rents some lights from New York City. She brings her own camera. She brings her MacBook Pro. We set up my dining room. So for about a week before she gets here, I'm setting up. I'm putting figures with accessories. I'm assembling all of the play sets. I'm assembling all the vehicles. And then as she sets up in the dining room, she has kind of this roll of white paper that goes underneath every toy, and we kind of roll it, put the toy down, take a shot, position the lights, click, 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 and then we rip the paper and we roll it down again. So it's kind of an assembly line for like 4 days from 8 in the morning till about 12 at night. And we've done that for a bunch of my toy books. And, after she goes home or goes to her hotel and I'm there, and, I don't have any toys on display, guys. I don't. This is something I do in my spare time.
Sure.
So, I don't have anything on display. So because all that stuff was like set up and ready to go, I think I probably stayed up from like midnight to like 4 in the morning that entire week, just like, playing with my Tauntaun with Open Belly Rescue. Like, does it still work? I can still put Luke in there. It was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed it. I just, even last night after I had to get some work done on this G.I. Joe project that I was working on for IDW, and I got some stuff that I was missing from the vintage collection from 2013, the Kmart exclusives that they came out with, the Endor ATST crew and stuff like that. So I got on, I was playing with them, and I got out my other vintage collection figures and played with those. And when I say play, it's not like I'm not like, okay, it's the Rebels versus the Empire. It's, just the simple fact, Dan and Corey, we're talking about the Power of the Force line in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And Dan asked me, what do you think of it? I said, it saved Star Wars. I mean, it brought it back. Yeah, they were muscular.
Yeah.
But I could go I remember they were so popular when the first series came out of the Power of the Force 2 in 95. I remember they were so popular you could literally go into any grocery store and find them. Because Leia, everyone was going crazy over Leia because she was short-packed initially. And people were, scalping Leia. And I'm like, guys, they're going to make millions of these, right? But just the simple fact that I was going into a store and I found Star Wars figures again.
Well, that was the magic. Every Thursday, I had a children's literature class, and it got out at about 3:30. And I would always leave there on Thursday, and I would go to this K's merchandise, and I would just hit the action figure line. I would just buy one or two. First, I said, I'm just going to buy one Star Wars figure. That's all I'm going to get because I already got all the stuff from Kenner, and and I'm older, and I don't want to get into it. Sure. And then, the next week comes up, well, maybe I'll just get two. And then next week, I think I'll just get three. And then also, what the hell, I'm just going to get all of them. And I did. I spent, I don't know how many years of my life going to Walmarts and Targets and Toys R Us's early in the morning. And I don't think it ever stopped until Revenge of the Sith, to be honest. And it was just so much fun. It was just great. Felt like you were Indiana Jones hunting them down.
Dan, one day, Corey, one day, I've been kind of thinking about this for a while. You're talking about, as Dan is talking about going to, what was the name of the store?
K's Merchandise.
K's Merchandise. And going there every Thursday after his children's literature class let out. There, if you're not an action figure collector or a comic book collector, you don't know how hallowed that ritual is.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm. How excited we feel in our souls.
Yes.
About going and doing that, because in the hopes that, you know what? A new assortment might be out.
That's right. And they've got the green card back now instead of the orange.
Yeah, when you see that new assortment, when you saw that the orange card was now a green card with a foil stamp, oh my God. Oh
yes.
My God. Exactly. People who aren't action figure collectors don't understand. And, people like to kind of j'accuse, they kind of point at us and say, well, you're missing something. You're trying to fill a hole.
Oh, yes. I've heard that many times.
What I say to them is, no, I'm trying to get back to a better vanished, more innocent time so I can keep my youthful enthusiasm.
That's right.
Rather than get bitter and dour, I actually have things that I look forward to in life that I don't want to lose. So,
even in his 70s, Mark Twain's, actually, she died in his late 60s, but she called Mark Twain youth, even when he was in his late 60s, because he had that sense of inner child, which is one of the reasons I love him so much. It's one of the reasons why we, as collectors, love collecting, because it brings you back, and the great thing about being a collector, I remember going to different department stores as a kid and looking for action figures, Kenner Star Wars action figures, and if, like you said in the book, and we talked about, if they were out of all the figures that I was looking for, I would just get an extra Stormtrooper or an extra Jawa or an extra Tusken Raider. And then I remember seeing adults buying these figures too, and I remember saying to my mom, why is that guy buying two figures? And my mom said, well, he's buying one for him, he's buying one for his child. And I remember thinking, well, that's weird. Why would an adult buy an action figure? And then it's almost like my adult self was patting myself on the back saying, Daniel, you're going to see very soon just how awesome that's going to be in your life. And man, now I have kids of my own and passing on them. There's nothing more fun than going down to a Walmart and hunting action figures with your kids. It's great.
And passing, and that, I usually get into the marketing side of things when I go on these interviews, and I've tried to stay away from it because I wanted to talk more about more positive stuff than marketing. And not that I'm equating evil with marketing.
Sure.
But one thing that I think Lucasfilm has done so deftly and so well is they've really initiated new tribes of fans to this license, whether it's through Lego or Star Wars Rebels, who I remember when I was watching the first episode with my wife, my beautiful wife Jessica, who says, "Boy, you think him looking like Aladdin was deliberate?" And I said, of course she was saying it in jest. I'm like, yeah, sure. Because they're trying to, I've used the word before, inculcate a new tribe of a new gaggle of consumers, and they've done it so well. You know, you guys and I may not have responded to episode 1 the way they wanted us to, but if you talk to any kid who was between the ages of 6 and 10 when that movie came out and they watched it, they loved Anakin Skywalker in that movie.
There's no doubt about it.
They loved Jake. They thought he was the coolest. So they really have appealed. And we were just watching the latest episode of Rebels on iTunes just now. Great episode. Mm-hmm. It was the Kanan-centric episode, another great Force episode. And I'll tell you, it's a great show, man. And you can see why young kids are coming back to this license in drove. And that's what I really wanted to do with my book. I know you've seen the new trilogy, and I know you've seen, because Netflix had all 6 seasons of the Clone Wars up, I know you've seen that, you're watching Rebels. Now here's some backstory on your dad's favorite toys. And it's accessible. So read about those dolls that your dad had and see what that was about. Yes, before there was Zero, your dad was watching Jabba the Hutt. Mm-hmm. So, take a look at this stuff. And that's what I really wanted to do was I wanted to have a multi-generational approach. I know that many of the uber diehard collectors might dismiss the book as not being as detailed or as comprehensive as possible. But, I wanted to reach as wide an audience as possible, and I wanted it to be a time capsule as much as a detailed guide.
Well, and that is a perfect description of how that is. And I consider myself as discerning as anyone, and I think it's wonderful. It's going to be a very well loved book in my life. That's for darn sure, because it's just, as I said, it's like a catalog. It's like a memory capsule. It's encyclopedic in the information from the now legends and from the canonical Star Wars. It's got everything you're going to want as a collector, whether you like Star Wars or you're just a collector of toys or you're just a person of historical significance and you want to embrace that. I think it hits all the right notes, and we're just thrilled to have you on and be able to talk about it, because it's been a real treat.
Thank you, Dan. And anytime. I love talking to guys as informed and decent as you guys. You just tell me when, and I'll be there.
Well, hey, cheers! We raise our coffee mug to you, my friend.
Yes.
Right on. I will raise my 8.4 fluid ounces of sugar-free Red Bull. That's a good idea to drink this at like 11 at night, right? I'll go right.
That's perfect.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I'm curious to know, Mark, with the new films coming out, and obviously you spoke about, new fans kind of, coming to grow up with these new films that are coming out. My kids are young. My oldest is 9. My youngest is 3, and they're gonna Star Wars infuses your childhood, I think, for anybody. And I'm curious to know your perspective on how do you kind of foresee or as far as them releasing new toy lines for these new films, and anticipating like I said, you're anticipating play sets, you're anticipating action figures. What do you anticipate that you think they will do for the future of merchandising?
Are you asking me what do I think they're going to do, or what do I hope they're going to do?
You're welcome to answer however you like.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Man, Corey, that is an incisive, a very well-asked question, and a very complicated question. In a perfect world, I want every Star Wars figure that comes out to be as detailed as the Vintage Collection or the 3 3/4 inch Black series.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
because when I went and I got the new TIE Advanced, the Inquisitor's TIE Advanced with the Inquisitor action figure, and I really wanted that Inquisitor action figure with its animated styling to be as flexible, as posable as the Clone Wars figures were from 08, 09, and 2010. I really wanted him to be hyper. I wanted Kanan to be hyper. I wanted Ezra to be. I get it. I grew up with those figures. I grew up with 5 points of articulation. I loved it in 1977, 1978, 1979, 1980, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85. I loved it back then. But how are you going to keep them down on the farm once they've seen 22 points of articulation?
Right. That's the real trick, isn't it? As to quote Han Solo.
To allow these two lines to coexist. When you put out these new movie figures, I'm assuming they're going to be Saga. I'm assuming
I would
they're
think,
going to be series, and they're not going to be Black Series. That's going to be very difficult for some people to digest.
They'll probably do both, and you bring up the Black Series, and I'm thinking particularly of the 6-inch line. When they rolled out, I scooped up the first 4 without even batting an eye and I thought they were incredible. I did something I almost never do. I actually opened them, and I love them. And then I feel like as they've gone on, they're kind of been hit and miss. At least for me personally. I've never really talked about this on the show too often, but not because I just never crossed my mind. But how do you feel about the particular ones? I think the Vader is quite exquisite, but some of them have left me a little stale. I was a little surprised by the Greedo. I wasn't as taken aback by that one.
You know, I'll use the word hallowed to describe my relationship with Star Wars and scale. To me, Star Wars is a 3 3/4 inch, 4-inch line. Like, I remember how resistant I was when, this is how old school I think. I grew up with Mego superheroes, man. I grew up with the 8-inch Mego world's greatest superheroes. That's what I grew up with. So it was very difficult for me to digest Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars in 84 and Superpowers.
Sure.
Because those were smaller scale. And then for me to deal with the Marvel Legends that came out in the noughts and the DC Universe Classics. But I eventually, maybe 2 or 3 series in, I went, okay, I've got to get these. And I think that's what I've begun to do with the 6-inch scale in the Black Series. I resisted, then I almost always, if I'm resisting a line, I almost always get the most difficult pieces. So I got the Boba Fett prototype armor from Walgreens, and, I got the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Jabba. So I got the most difficult pieces that way. If I ever decide to commit to the line, I've got the most difficult to find pieces first, and I can work my way back. I've got a Sand Trooper, I've got a TIE Fighter pilot, I've got a bunch of Stormtroopers. So
you have the white Walgreens Boba Fett?
Yes, yeah. I have a Walgreens, maybe a low-powered BB pistol away from my house.
Oh, wow.
So I can literally walk to Walgreens from where I am.
Nice.
Where I bought my house is a quarter to a half a mile away from a Walmart, Toys R Us, Target, and Walgreens, and that is by design.
I was going to say, sounds strategic. I love it.
It is by design.
Well, time is really, it's really gotten away from us because we're just having so much fun. We say this so much, but it's like we could just talk for hours about this. Before we let you go, we got to ask you our 5 questions we ask each of our guests, but I want to share some of the tweets we received today, and I sent a message out earlier today saying that we're going to talk to you just to hear people's reflections on the line, and I got a few. Jeff Long 24 said, after a long wait as a child, finally discovering the vinyl Cape Jawa figs in a North Lake Tahoe toy store was pure magic. Great stuff. And then Ian McDonald writes, unwrapping the AT-AT Christmas morning 83, then losing the grappling hook and the shag carpeting at my grandmother's.
Oh, the grappling hook of the Jetstar space station?
I know, for the AT-AT.
Oh, my God. Oh, when it came with the extra weapons.
Yes.
Oh, man. Yikes.
That's great. You know, the AT-AT is the one, that's the one that got away from me. I've never gotten an AT-AT in any line. I've always wanted to, but it's always been, when it came out, I just didn't have $100 that I wanted to plunk down for it. And man, there's not a day that goes by that when I hear the word AT-AT, I don't think, man, I wish I had one of those.
That's a majestic beast.
It really is.
Calls it the elephant. Because it looks like an elephant.
No doubt. No doubt.
I love it. I love that. Oh, man. And that's what you hate. That grappling hook, the grappling hook from the action figure survival kit that was repackaged in later versions of the AT-AT. Man, that was a great grappling hook too, man. Oh, that's too bad.
So much fun. So much fun. Well, hopefully he can find one on eBay. So Craig Dickinson, of course, our Rebels Reconnaissance reviewer and blogger and just great guy. He said, putting all the name stickers on the slots in my Darth Vader case before getting the figures. I did that too. And my brother and I, we both had the same one. Oh, we both had one of our own. And I took mine and I put the stickers in exactly how they were on the picture, and I wanted it to be exact. And I was so anal about it. He just threw them in there anywhere, and they were upside down. And it used to drive me crazy. I guess it was a sign I was going to be an organization freak when I got older.
I did the same thing though, Dan. I if I saw it on the picture, that's the way I did it. And if there was a discrepancy between how they were placed on the toy in the photo and how they were, for instance, like the Death Star space station, there's nowhere on the instruction sheet that shows you how to place the labels on the set. And it's very odd because it's pretty self-explanatory where the labels go on, like the computer consoles. But you have no idea where the rest of the labels go, and it's very difficult to find out from the box. Because I have a couple boxed ones. It's amazing, and that would drive me crazy as a child. Like, I don't know where these go.
I know. I remember sometimes I would be reluctant to open the figures because I was afraid I was going to lose the weapons, and I thought, well, so I had to get over myself at some point. But man, it's just that's one of the things that. I mean, I guess we could have a whole show with you just about to open or not to open and have a lot of fun with that too. But I want to hit some more of these tweets real quick. Ryder Waldron, of course, another amazing guy, supporter of the show and blogger for us. He said, "Mine would be going to toy stores and seeing Star Wars toys everywhere." And you see a classic Star Wars tweeting this, and other awesome Twitter accounts tweeting out these awesome pictures they have from Christmases when they were kids or their friends or family, and going under the tree. I remember my favorite memory is. We had a particular Star Wars Christmas, and the final gift, it just sort of seemed to appear. I don't know if it was hiding behind the tree or what, was the original Millennium Falcon, and that was magical. That would be my favorite Kenner memory.
It's so odd that you mentioned that because I went to visit my parents this Christmas for the first time. We spent Christmas with them for a couple of years, and I've had a couple different websites asking me for pictures of me when I was a kid with these toys. And I knew I had some. So I tracked down like 10 or 15 of them, me and like a Bat Machine, which is, I was little. It's like the Green Machine vehicle?
Oh, yeah.
But they made a Batman Green Machine and they called it the Bat Machine. So I have a picture of that with these flags. And I have a picture of me at I gotta think, 8 years old, holding, trying to hold the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
As I just opened it with fresh stickers and the radar dish still on it. I hadn't lost it yet. So I found that picture and I'm thinking about that as you're talking. I'm like, there was Kenner was so considerate, even when they put together vehicles, because they made sure that you had that one post on the landing gear that you could use as a place to hold it.
Right.
The level of consideration for kids was astonishing. Losing parts, you could literally mail them and say, listen, this is broken. And they were just great PR, great consumer service.
Yeah. And sharing those stories, it just, I never had a whole bunch of the Star Wars stuff for my Christmases, but certainly plenty of geek stuff. But this year we got our second oldest son the Star Wars Lego set, the Rebels ghost ship, and as he opened it, he was just like, "Yes, this is awesome! I wanted all these." It was just like, "Oh, this is so cool to be able to pass that on." And like we talk about generations and new fans and stuff, and he was just so enthused. They put it together, it took him forever, but piece by piece, and they're very meticulous about the stickers and things. Even with those new Lego sets that are coming out, they're almost the same. In the same way you guys are talking about your memories of having these older sets and opening them up as kids and get everything just right, and everybody has their own little accessory and not want to lose things, but it's fascinating to even like give that memory to my own kids, so I can appreciate that as a parent.
I love that, and both of you guys talking about passing on this knowledge, just it makes me so happy. I think that's great.
Yeah, thank you. It's where all the fun comes. Without kids, there is no Star Wars.
Right. You
got to keep it alive.
My wife is like 8 years younger than I am, so I'm not really in any hurry.
Right.
But I think it's going to get to the point where I've got to do it soon because I want to see one day what you guys see in your kids' eyes, where you're, oh my God, we're sharing that stuff. Plus, I've got to leave this stuff to somebody.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I probably got to have like 3 or 4 kids so I can hit on the one who's going to be a toy collector. Keep having them until we find somebody.
That's right. Oh, I love this. Is so much fun. Just a few more. Lisa, of course, our media specialist. Where would Coffee with Kenobi be without Lisa Dollard, honestly? Mm-hmm. But she wrote in, late 70s road trip. My figures lined up on the backseat of my parents' Oldsmobile, making up my own Star Wars stories. Love that. Ryan, Duback66 _ Ryan says, memories of seeing tri-logos and 2-packs and KB floor bins for 99 cents. Sadly, I only bought about 12. Kicking myself now. Wow. Yeah. I remember that too. I still have those. In fact, Mark, and it probably doesn't mean too much now because, it's the last version, but I have the original Vader still unpackaged with the coin, the Power of the Force one. So I was pretty pumped when I found that. I actually found that 6 months ago. I completely forgot I had it.
Isn't it great when you're like going?
Oh yeah.
Like, oh my God! What is that? No.
I know. I sent Corey a picture. Said, "Dude, look at this."
Yeah.
Wow, a Vader on carded with the coin. That's great.
Yeah, it's too bad it's not the just the original without the card. But hey, I'll take it.
Oh, absolutely. Wow.
And then we had Mike McDonald. He said, it took me a long time to appreciate the Kenner line as an adult collector, and now I want a whole set. And I think that pretty much is a perfect synopsis for what we were talking about. I really think that it's the cliche now, but The Force Awakens has awakened fandom. It's awakened those adults who fell out of touch with Star Wars and have come back. Us diehards, we've always been there. We're never going to leave, but it's just bringing everybody back to the fold, and it's really, really nice. It's been really, really fun to see.
Yeah, and it's a charming line, if nothing but. I mean, it's very unique. There's nothing like it in terms of design or expanse. Maybe the 3 3/4 inch G.I. Joe line from 82 to 94.
I was just going to say that.
But this, with the aliens and the colors, I think this has more charm to it. The G.I. Joe line is far more, probably fiercer, but this may have more charm and personality.
Yeah, and you almost had to flip a coin for me, which one I have better memories of, because they're both pretty darn awesome.
Depends on the day for me.
I agree. I'm going to be on a future Talking Toys with Jeff McGee. We talk all about just the first wave of G.I. Joe. I'm sure he'll have you on as a regular too. And
I have a lot of product information about the 82 line from Larry Hama. So if you guys ever want to talk.
Of course. Absolutely. I think that's a must. Well, speaking of must, before we let you go, we'd be certainly remiss if we didn't ask you our 5 questions that we ask each of our guests at Coffee with Kenobi to sort of show the commonality between fans and fandom. And I'll just start with the first one, Mark. What is your favorite Star Wars movie?
The Empire Strikes Back. I watch it once every 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah. So, Mark, your favorite Star Wars character?
Han Solo.
Boom.
There's something about him. He's the redemption of that character. The coolness of Solo, the charm, you either related to Luke or you related to Han. And I was always more of a Han guy. I loved being Han Solo. He was great, man.
Heck, anything Harrison Ford touches pretty much, especially in the 80s, that's gold. Your favorite line of dialogue or film moment?
Your time's on reach before you reach the first marker. Then I'll see you in hell.
You're the first for that one. Yeah, that's great.
Great line.
That just takes you out of the movie for a second, It
really does.
I just went, there's a hell? A long time ago, galaxy away, hell? It's just an odd line. I just love it.
So obviously you collect. We established that, I think. Yes. So what is your favorite collectible that you own?
My favorite collectible that I own is an 8-inch official World's Greatest Superheroes Green Arrow figure that I bought in 1989, senior year of high school, for $210 because that was the first time as an adult or as a semi-adult that I bought a collectible on the secondary market.
Is that the Mego?
I fantasized that figure in the back of my mind for like 15 years. And I had finally gotten it, and I had always wanted it my entire life. And that was the first real secondary market purchase I ever made.
Was that the Mego one?
That was the Mego one.
You know what? I had that. I vividly remember my dad carrying me, and I had it, and I bought it because I remember thinking, this is not one that I normally see. I'm not even sure who this character is, but I just was instantly drawn towards the goatee and the
great looking figure.
Yeah, the arrow. Oh, man. And now, of course, we moved, and the Mego characters went away, and oh man, what a great find that is. What about Star Wars? What's your favorite Star Wars collectible?
That I own?
Yes. And if it makes you feel better, the next time you come on, you can change your mind.
Something about that Dagobah playset, man. There was something about that. That and the Imperial Attack Base. I played with both of those over and over and over and over, just because there was so much involved in both of those. They were literally just play settings, and if you read the directions for the Dagobah set, the big brown stump is removable. It's supposed to be removable. So you can take it off, and there are little snakes on there, and Yoda's porridge, and any play set where you could interact and you could stand them up and put, probably Dagobah. Yeah, I love that playset. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's so great.
So what particular messages or themes about the Star Wars saga resonate or speak to you?
It's Yoda's, I guess, sage advice. My ally's the Force. It's a powerful ally. Life creates it and makes it grow. We're luminous beings, not crude matter. You've got to feel the Force around you, between you and me and the tree and the rock, everywhere. That Eastern philosophy, and the sacrifice, and to a certain extent, sacrificing yourself for the lives of others. That's that message, man, that I don't think a lot of, I can't say that level of sacrifice is pretty profound in those films. And as if Star Wars drifts away from that message, I think it kind of drifts away from its essence. So I think that the best of Star Wars to me is about sacrifice, what you're willing to give up for the lives of your friends. And I think that was a big, big message to me.
It's the true definition of love.
Yes. When you love, you wish to sacrifice, you wish to serve. That's Hemingway.
That's right. Very good. I love it. Well, Mark, again, what a great pleasure. Where can people get in touch with you if they want to ask you a question or just say hello?
I'm on Facebook, And you know what? You just throw my name in there. I'll friend you, and I usually respond to any question or request within about 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, it's one thing. One of the great things about having this show is Corey and I, getting to talk all the time, and our friendship always grows. But then Corey and I get this great thing that happens. We get to interact with the Star Wars community in ways we never ever dreamed of or thought possible, and we get to meet new friends. And Mark, it's been a joy to get you back here on the show with us, to enjoy your book, and we look forward to many more conversations in the future and hopefully in person. Are you going to be at Star Wars Celebration?
Unfortunately, I have like 4 book projects this year, plus I run a department at a college for first-generation low-income students and learning disabled students. So it's a grant year this year. I work for the federal government, so it's kind of busy.
Yes.
And that job comes first as much as I love toys. But, I rarely go to the big events. I usually go to the ones that are far closer and easier and quicker to get to.
Sure. Very good. Well, I'm sure our paths will cross at some point.
Oh, I guess, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm sure I'll run into you. I travel all the time and a lot. And Corey and Dan, thank you very, very much for having me on. It was an absolute pleasure. And anytime you'd like me to come back on to talk about toys, please give me a call.
Oh, most certainly. And for everyone listening, to get a copy of Mark's book, The Ultimate Guide to Vintage Star Wars Action Figures 1977 and 1985, check it out on Amazon. We'll have links to it on our show notes and on some of our widgets. So, Mark, thanks again for being on Coffee with Kenobi.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you to the readers. Thanks, guys. The readers, the listeners. Bye. Thank you.
More to add, do you?
We do have 2 emails about the Kenner Vintage Collection. The first one is, of course, from our good friend Melinda, and she writes, I must admit, I never really was into collecting vintage action figures. It wasn't that I didn't find them appealing. I just really liked the details put forth in the action figures released with the advent of the special edition and prequel releases. Then one day, I was at our local Star Wars store. It really isn't called that. I just refer to it as such since the majority of fare is Star Wars related. Bruising Mike the owner's merchandise, and I was drawn to the array of vintage action figures locked up in a display case. Please don't think that I had missed them on my many previous visits to the store. I hadn't. I just never was much interested in them. Anyway, a vintage figure that was supposed to be Luke caught my eye. I asked Mike if he would pull it out of the case for me, which he did. I couldn't help but laugh at how unlike Luke it looked. That was all it took, making me laugh. I don't know what others had to say about this, but the funnier I find a Star Wars item, the more it appeals to me, and the more inclined I am to purchase it. It was a Luke and Rebel Pilot gear action figure, the first of a few vintage action figures I now have on display in my home office. My pockets are only so deep. I have only so much room in my house. So when it comes to making any personal purchases where vintage action figures are concerned, I concentrate on Luke Skywalker, my favorite character. I have 4 of them, Luke clad in different costumes. One day, I hope to complete my vintage Luke collection. There's something endearing about these vintage figures, a simplicity to the look that can transfer one back in time. We do not have a real time machine at our disposal, but it is possible to travel back in time if we allow our imagination to take us there. I'd say these toys, yes, that's what they are, do just that. Have a wonderful weekend, Melinda. Well, thanks, Melinda. That was great. And I agree. I love how she said that about, we don't have a time machine, but you can go back in time with these. And famously, and we talked about this with Mark, but the Luke in X-Wing doesn't really look like Luke. It doesn't, I mean, but so what? It's Luke to me. I mean, that's the Luke I grew up with. I know I certainly had all these figures, and we were just talking on with Mark about them, but man, it's cool. I like that I think she did something cool I hadn't really thought about with the vintage line, and that's just get Luke's or just get the Leia's or just get the Han Solos. If you're just going to collect the Vader from the vintage line, there's really just one. I mean, I know there are variants, but it's just one outfit. So this is a cool way to do it if you're even remotely interested.
And I know there was a photo flying around out in the internets.
On the internets?
Internets of this vintage toy aisle. And I'm sure you've probably seen it, Dan.
Yes.
And it's like, it's like clean and cut, and it's perfect. And it's like, somebody put a quote on there saying something like, the Our Heyday or something like that. And I never had that, as far as 1978 up until the point I was born. But I look at that and I'm like, oh, that looks awesome. I'm going to step into that photo and walk down the aisles and look at all this stuff and just, I remember going to toy stores too and walking down those aisles and being a kid, and certainly she relates to her own story there. But it's everybody's got those memories too of going to the stores and picking them out and having those great memories that just are so endearing to each of every one of us. So thanks, Melinda, for the great email. Our next email comes from Mike Smith. We're talking about the Star Wars Canada line, and he writes in and says, "Hi, you have a great show, and I have been listening from almost the beginning. I listen to a lot of Star Wars podcasts, and yours is one of the few that get deep into topic discussions. As for the next subject, I got my very first Star Wars toy in the late 70s. I'm pretty sure it was, I don't go into what that says.
I'm pretty sure it was a 20 back, meaning that on the back they show 20 figures.
Oh, see, I didn't catch that. I don't know the lingo.
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay. I'm pretty sure it was a 20 back Hammerhead and Jawa and X-Wing. We didn't have much back then, so I didn't get a whole lot, but after the early 80s, I did amass quite a bit. Some of the stuff I still have, but it's pretty trashed. Since then, I've grossed quite a vintage and modern collection. My proudest achievement was finally completing a complete carded and loose 85 Power of the Force set, including the ultra rares. Well, thanks for my email, and we'll continue to listen to the podcast and hopefully contribute more to social media stuff. And that's from Mike Smith. Thanks, Mike, for the great email and reliving some of your early memories of Star Wars and collecting. It's so interesting that everybody's got a wholly different memory, and I think you'd said it, Dan, that the toys bring out that imagination in us. In the films do too, yes, but the toys are your own imagination. And famously, you got C-3PO as your first one, and you didn't even know what it was. I mean, you didn't know what he played and what he was doing. And it was just in your own imagination. Maybe he was a hero or what it might be. And I think that's so fascinating to hear these stories and how they got their collection going and where it is today. And it's just fascinating to hear that kind of stuff and just be able to know that such a wonderful toy line made so many people happy. Our topic for show number 31 is Star Wars A New Hope. Scott Murray of Assembly of Geeks joins us as we continue to look at the 6 existing Star Wars films in reverse order to discuss their overall themes and impact. This is the one that started it all. What are some of the more indelible moments and images? What themes from Star Wars speak the strongest, and how has the specific film made an impact on your life? In 300 words or less, be sure to send us an email or MP3 with your thoughts, comments, questions, and opinions to feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com.
I like the sound of that.
Echo 3 to Echo 7. Ano, buddy, do you read me?
I saw part of the message.
I seem to have found it.
Our first listener email comes from Greg Carber, and he says, I designed a fanfic bot on Twitter. And the Twitter handle is @StarWarsFanfic, and randomly tweets Star Wars fanfic every hour involving one or more followers. And you can read more about it at gregcarber.com/Star Wars. I hope you enjoy it. And if you have any questions, please hit me back. Greg, that's a pretty awesome thing you made there. I don't know.
I checked the link.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun. Yeah,
it sounds fun.
It is cool. I highly encourage everyone to check it out and give Greg a shout and let him know what you think.
Follow him. Go ahead and follow him and check it out and tell us what kind of tweet you get. Be a lot of fun to read.
Our next email is from Andy Jardine, and we had a little conversation. He sent a couple in, and I'm just going to combine the greatest hits from this because it's pretty fun. He says, "Hey guys, my name's Andy. I'm from Oshawa, Ontario, Canada. I'll keep it brief. I was just wondering if you were planning on making Coffee with Kenobi merchandise. I would love a Coffee with Kenobi t-shirt, and I actually logged onto your site tonight hoping to buy one, but you don't have any. I listen to your show all the time, and I wanted to give back to you in some way for all the great work you do." And then he jumped in and said, "Wait a minute, I just Googled Coffee with Kenobi shirts and saw that you had a limited run. I feel bad that I missed out. If you ever decide to do another run of shirts, I'll be there. All I can say is thank you so much for your time and hard work. There's only a couple of podcasts I get excited for, and Coffee with Kenobi is always one of them. May the force be with you. Well, and that was such a nice thing. I emailed him back. I try to email everybody back as best I can. And he said, your response really made my day for the last few days, so thank you. I posted an iTunes review as well. Well, thank you, Andy. We appreciate that. It made me smile that you asked for input on a new design. I don't have many friends that are into Star Wars, but I still told them about my excitement upon receiving an email back. I put some mind to ideas for shirts, but all in all, I think your classic design is best. Pretty neat, huh? And then he jumps in at the end and he says, in 2013, Rebel Force Radio had their American Thanksgiving episode coming up and promoted it by telling people to call in and leave a voicemail. It stayed with me for days, and I finally did call just before I left for work one day. I was shaking as I left. They played it on their show, and it blew my mind, as your email did. So I bought a Rebel Force Radio shirt for me and my buddy, and we wear them all the time. I got him into your show, too, and we would love to get shirts. I said on the voicemail that they are like the glue that holds Star Wars together, that even when nothing is going on, there can be a discussion that lasts minutes and hours. That is how I feel about Coffee with Kenobi, too. You guys are part of Star Wars for me now. You're the glue to fandom. When I'm in the mood for Star Wars, I wonder if you have a new episode ready to go, because that totally can make my day. And again, thank you. May the force be with you. Well, Andy, we're just overwhelmed. That is so nice and such a flattering thing. We certainly appreciate it so much. As far as the T-shirts, we've been hitting around this a lot, and we're still not quite there, but we're close. We're definitely going to have shirts in order for shirts before Celebration, because I think that'd be fun. Yeah. And of course, Corey's the designer extraordinaire around here, the Coffee with Kenobi office. So, what do you think, man? Do you have any news for us? Are you gonna make the same design? Are you going to tweak it a little bit for Celebration? What say you, my friend?
Yeah, when I was first toying around this current version of this Coffee with Kenobi logo, we had some different variations, and one of them was two coffee cups clinking together, kind of in quote unquote celebration. So it might be underway as far as using that design to have something for Celebration for fans to pick up and wear around the convention floor, or I don't know. We're still kind of tossing the idea back and forth. We're not set on an exact design, but if anybody has thoughts or questions or any advice or something they'd like to see, we'll definitely throw it in our hat and see what comes out of it. So, but we're going to definitely do a shirt of some kind before our Celebration. So be on the lookout for that. Our next email comes from Simon Fellows, and he says, "Hey guys, being a recent convert to the podcasting listening from January 2014, it's with pleasure I spend my nightly 2-hour stroll reviewing a variety of different topics. It's with rapture, however, that I look forward to a new Coffee with Kenobi cast and an entry into a world I previously did not know existed. I've been a huge Star Wars fan since A New Hope, but my fandom has rarely gone beyond repeating watchings of all the episodes. But I get to dive deeper into topics and opinions I have never even thought possible. You guys are definitely the best Star Wars cast out there, and I hope you appreciate the joy it brings to many fans through the ability to expand our feelings of the universe beyond the 12-plus hours provided by Lucasfilm. Well done, and keep it up." That's from Simon Fellows. Simon, we're flattered by all means. Like I said, we mentioned this a couple times, that we're just two Star Wars fans having a good time. Two guys just promoting fandom and Star Wars and just talking about a saga we love. And trying to give a voice to everybody out there that has a voice, that wants to have something to say, and we do that through discussion and analysis, and we just enjoy doing it. So again, thanks a lot. Appreciate the email.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo that. Corey said it very well, but yeah, Simon, that means so much. It's so kind of you. There are a lot of wonderful Star Wars podcasts out there, so we appreciate that you would include us in your lineup and in your nightly strolls, and it's a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much. This next email comes from Larry Thomas, and Larry writes, "Hi, Dan. Because I am quite uninformed when it comes to Star Wars, more on this later, I did some picking and choosing when sampling the blog posts and podcasts. I started out with podcast number 28 of the Coffee with Kenobi series, but it quickly proved my almost complete lack of Star Wars-related knowledge. Fortunately, though, I then listened to the podcast describing your reactions to the online release of The Force Awakens. Your level of excitement came through so strongly that I thought you were close to hyperventilating. You clearly make a convincing case, though, for seeing the movie when it is released. Many of the blog posts were likewise over my head, but I thoroughly enjoyed the post about the Star Wars prom and also the post of how you are incorporating Star Wars into your classroom curricula. Your level of excitement and enthusiasm for The Force Awakens, and obviously for anything Star Wars, is moving me to think that I should watch the previous chapters' episodes in anticipation of watching The Force Awakens. I definitely remember seeing the 1977 original, which I guess is now Chapter 4, but I don't recall seeing any of the subsequent movies. Knowing that 3 prequels were released after the original first 3, I Googled to find out the order in which the episodes should be viewed. It appears that the recommended viewing sequences 4, 5, 2, 3, and 6, with Chapter 1, The Phantom Menace, not worthy of viewing. So I will try to begin filling in my Star Wars information gap over the next few months. I will let you know if I succeed. And that's from Larry Thomas. And I want to, full disclosure again, we always do full disclosure. I don't even know why I bothered with that statement. Larry is my cousin, and he is a retired professor. He's an awesome guy, incredibly fun to talk to about any topics. We've spent a lot of time talking about the Cubs over the years, which of course can bring its own
go Cubs.
Go Cubs. It can be its own heartache in its own way. But he and I conversed a little bit about this, and he was gracious enough to let me read this on the air. And I encourage him to watch The Phantom Menace because as we talked about on our show, I think with Tom, right? With Tom Gross.
Yeah, Rebels Reactions.
Yeah. It was it's worthy of being in there, and it's fun. So this is a great email, and I love that I laughed when he talked about it. It sounded like we were hyperventilating. I had a number of friends say stuff to me about that. So thank you so much, Larry, for your support, and we definitely look forward to hearing your journey through Star Wars. It is pretty fun. This is probably the first email we've ever received where someone just says, "Hey, I like Star Wars. It's cool, but I'm not really familiar with it." So getting to embrace Star Wars that way, I'm almost envious. It's pretty fun.
You know, the other thing, too, we'll put out there, I think it's so cool that we've prompted him to check out the other films.
Yeah.
Regardless of any order. I mean, it's so funny because I don't think there's somebody out there that I know that hasn't either seen the films or in some sort of order or whatnot. Larry, I implore you to check the films out at your leisure. And tell us what you think. We'd love to know what you like, what you think of them, and what order you do end up checking them out. And let us know how much you like them. Our last email goes from Dan Zettinger, and he says, "Love the show. I was listening to episode 29, and you mentioned the jazz album at the end. However, I can't find the album searching myself. Could you please send me more info on how to find this?" Thanks for the email, Dan. Yeah, we originally it was on iTunes for a while, and the music is by the artist's name is Steve Torok. That's Torok, and the album was Eye to Eye. It's no longer on iTunes, unfortunately. We have reached out to Steve to get his opinion, and maybe we can get a link out there to fans looking to pick that up. But definitely get you more information when it comes to our show.
Chewie, get us out of here!
If you would like to respond to our question of the show, have a comment, or just want to say hello, send us an email or MP3 at feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com. Or if you have a specific question or comment for either of us individually, email us at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com or coryc@coffeewithkenobi.com. Or visit us at coffeewithkenobi.com and click on the Contact Us section, or comment on one of the stories featured on the site. If you enjoy the show, please write a review in iTunes or Stitcher. You can also like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi, as well as keep up to date at our Twitter feed at coffeewithkenobi. You can also find us on Tumblr at coffeewithkenobi.tumblr.com. If you enjoy the jazz music, the album is Eye to Eye by Steve Torok.
Give the evacuation code signal.
That's it for show number 30 of Coffee with Kenobi. A big thank you to Mark Bellomo for stopping by to discuss his book, The Ultimate Guide to Vintage Star Wars Action Figures 1977 to 1985, and for sharing his thoughts on this classic line. Be sure to check out his book today through the link in our show notes.
Thanks also to Lillian Sky for sharing her story on the Star Wars paper. and for sharing a cup of coffee with us. Be sure to follow her on Twitter at @LillianSky_, and check out her blog, lilliansky.wordpress.com. Thanks also to Rob at the Bearded Trio, to everyone who contributed to our show, and to all of you out there who listen and email Coffee with Kenobi. Don't forget to send us your comments and opinions on the topic for show number 31, Star Wars: A New Hope.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
There's no one here. Move along. Move along.